Hello and welcome to the Game Theory Podcast. I'm your host, Sam Vecini. We are presented by The Athletic. Today on the show, Bryce Simon is in the building. Bryce is here. And we are going to talk about Damian Lillard. All of the crazy trade news that has occurred over the weekend, all of the rumors, the innuendo, all of the frankly bullshit that is getting spread by both sides and all of the many sides. There are like 6 different pieces of this, it feels like. Trying to create leverage, trying to create this, that, the other thing. We're going to talk about all of that. Who makes the most sense, who doesn't. I feel like this is a never-ending saga, but it feels like we're at least honing in, maybe is a way to put it. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about Dallas Mavericks starting lineup. Jason Kidd made some interesting comments to Marc Stein over the weekend about potentially starting Omax, Prosper, and Derek Lively. Intriguing to me. For a team that has Luka Doncic and ostensibly should be trying to contend for a title anytime you have Luka Doncic, you should probably not start 2 rookies is my theory, but maybe you will, and we'll find out. We'll talk about that a little bit more. Finally, we're going to talk about the NBL Blitz, and that will be like the back half of this show. We're going to talk about all of the prospects that I got to see in person. I was at the Blitz, as we talked about last week on the show with Bryce. I saw, I think, everybody there at least once, except for Josh Bannan, who got hurt in the first game, and I did not get a chance to see him. Have you seen much of Josh Bannan?
I have not,
Montana,
no,
Bryce? No. Yeah. One of the more interesting, weird prospects I've evaluated in a while. Has like a shot where he's a lefty and his arms are like straight armed almost coming out like away from his body as he loads the ball up into his shooting pocket and then gets everything perfectly into rhythm. And the shot looks absolutely beautiful, like 6'10". It's so weird. And it's like a full jumper. We'll talk about it a little bit more. But we're going to talk about Alex Sarr, Bobby Klintman, AJ Johnson, Trentyn Flowers, Taran Armstrong, Lachlan Olbrich.
Yes.
The icon Lachlan Olbrich.
I got notes. I'm ready.
I am so excited to talk about Lachlan Olbrich. I think he is a legit dude. Also, Derpy Entertainment is here. He's just here for the hat content. You're goddamn right you're here for the hat content. Ohio State beats Notre Dame over the weekend on
I'm a Notre Dame fan, Sam.
Second play. I went to Ohio State, so you better believe that I'm going to be here talking my shit. Yeah, that's goddamn right, Lou Holtz. Yeah.
This is a good game.
Truly one of the funniest things I've ever seen is Ryan Day, like, first comments after beating Notre Dame on the last play of a game. He's like, yeah, Lou Holtz. I had to go tell Lou Holtz after the game that our team is tough. My man is 86 years old and he's been off TV for like 8 years, and you got to do this. But here's the other thing. You better believe that all those fans back in Columbus, they ate it up. I know that fan base very well, having went there. They ate that shit up. And then Adam N is here for the movie takes. I watched 4 new releases this week. I watched Bottoms, which is one of the funniest goddamn movies I've seen in so long. I watched Jules. I watched No One Will Save Us, which is this wild like home invasion alien thing. And then also went to see The Equalizer 3, which is just some glorious shit. I think Denzel wanted a vacation in Italy and was like, hey, I'll just film another Equalizer movie in Italy. What a flex. But Bryce is here. Bryce, what's going on, buddy?
What's up? First, I love the league and how they play out leverage in the media. I'm here for it. I love how agencies use the media. I love how teams use it. I'm here for all of it. I know it annoys some people. I love the college football trash talk that's going on from head coaches every weekend. Oregon's head coach was after Deion's after everybody. I love it. And then I don't watch many movies, Sam, but I will tell you this. If you can, go watch The Dropout. I believe it's either on Netflix or Hulu. it's not a movie. Well, I guess it isn't, but it's like a documentary, essentially. Incredible story. Something I didn't even realize happened.
It's a docudrama.
Yeah, I didn't even know what happened, Sam. And this story is insane. Like, I didn't know what happened when it happened, is what I mean. And man, just a crazy story. So I'm not very good with movie takes. If you guys are here for that, Sam's gonna have to bring on a different guest. But I watch some from time to time when I'm not watching hoops.
I watched the Dropout, and then last week I actually read Bad Blood, the book that the whole Elizabeth Holmes thing is based on. So or just not based on, but the whole Elizabeth Holmes deep dive into Theranos and everything. It's good. Amanda Seyfried's fucking amazing in that show. She's so good.
Incredible. She's incredible. Whenever I turned on an actual interview, I was like, my wife's name is Rainey. I was like, Rainey, wake up. Like, you need to hear this. She sounds just like her. She did such a good job.
Yeah. That's one of the better TV performances I've seen in a while. And I feel like she did not get like nearly enough credit for it come awards time. But let's dive into the Damian Lillard saga. So Damian Lillard is going to be traded, it feels like, at some point. This weekend, it finally felt, to me at least, like the tide turned and that this thing is going to happen before training camp, seemingly. That the Blazers did not want to take this into training camp. We talked about this on the last episode a little bit, just about why you wouldn't want to do that, maybe in terms of the player participation policy, maybe in terms of the distractions, everything like that. D-Rock brings up the idea of what the Blazers owe Damian Lillard. Look, I don't think the Blazers owe Damian Lillard much of anything. I don't think Damian Lillard owes the Blazers much of anything. I think that everybody should handle their business in the way they want to handle their business, and you act accordingly based on how people act and respond in these circumstances, right? So Damian Lillard, it is clear, for instance, and this is where we can rope Toronto in. To me, it is clear, for instance, in my opinion, that Damian Lillard's representation, maybe Dame himself, are sending out smoke signals that they don't really want to go to Toronto. You know, Sam Amick said, like, maybe if he goes to Toronto, wouldn't report. Shams reported that a couple of weeks ago, that he has no interest in going to Toronto and like wouldn't report. I don't know if he would report or not. I'm not going to sit here and pretend. My guess is he probably would. Because, you know, what, are you going to sit out a year when you're 33 years old and your whole career has been so geared toward trying to win? And this is like your best last chance to win, being 33. Like, it only goes downhill from here in terms of your play. So I kind of have always felt like him not reporting is an empty threat given his age, but only Damian Lillard and his reps, I think, at this point know whether or not that is real or not. What is interesting now is that some of the teams that I've kind of heard on the periphery of this conversation are starting to become like a little bit more public at this point. The Raptors are a team that, when I kind of talked to people at the Blitz last week, I think I mentioned this on the last show, the Raptors came up quite a bit as a real potential option when talking to like NBA personnel. I did not hear Chicago at all from anybody. The Chicago one is interesting to me, and maybe we can talk about like how that happens. I don't totally understand how Chicago would even mechanically and logically really get into this. But Chicago, I didn't really hear, but Miami's obviously like omnipresent. I'm not going to sit here and say like I have firsthand understanding of what's happening with these negotiations. I don't. I will just say I would find it exceptionally surprising if the Blazers are not talking to Miami. It's possible they go back and forth between all these different teams, and it's possible that because there now seem to be so many moving parts involving, you know, potentially Phoenix. I saw a Utah thing with Tyler Herro. You see Brooklyn with Tyler Herro potentially. These deals are so exceptionally fucking hard to come together, because everybody will come in kind of at the end and say, we want this, we want that. And then, for instance, like then teams will ask, like, well, what's this team getting? And then they'll say what they're getting. And then, like, it's totally illogical. It's irrational, but teams always feel like they want to win trades. And sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. And the whole thing can fall apart based on things that just don't even make sense, right? So all of the mechanics involved with a 4-team deal get really ridiculous and silly. The first thing I want to ask you, we've talked about the Miami Heat kind of ad nauseum with Damian Lillard. Obviously, Damian Lillard makes sense for the Miami Heat. I will ask you this question first. Does Damian Lillard make sense for the Toronto Raptors in your mind?
So my initial response was yes. And then the more I looked at it, and I think I even put this in my notes of, does a Dames, Barnes, Siakam, and then whatever you have left, does that get it done?
Yeah.
The answer is it gives you a chance in the East, probably, right? Like, is that trio favorites in the East?
No.
Are they favorites over the Bucks?
No.
Are they favorites? I mean, they're favorites over the Sixers?
Assuming James Harden is MIA, then yes. But we just don't know what that roster looks like, I think.
The Celtics?
No.
The Heat?
So they have Lillard. The Heat do not have Lillard. I would say they are probably favored over the Heat at that stage.
And then they have all the Western Conference teams, which I know that's a whole nother conversation. So,
well, the other team for me is the Cavs.
Oh yeah,
like,
shoot.
I think
apologies to Cavs. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah, I think the Cavs finished ahead of them in the regular season. I think that the Raptors very possibly, depending on what all they would have to give up in addition to keeping Barnes and Siakam to get Lillard. I think that it would be a question which one would be more applicably built for the postseason. But I'm also higher on the Cavs than everybody. So I'm, first hand up acknowledging that I might be too high on the Cavs.
But this trade doesn't get done without OG. No matter, we'll talk about it in a second, but no matter where OG ends up, we don't think this trade gets done without OG, correct?
So I want to table that for a
Okay.
second.
Okay.
I just want to table that for a second because I think there's like an interesting conversation to be had there too. So here's my problem with this from Toronto's perspective. Does a Lillard, Siakam, Barnes trio make sense? Along with Jakob Poeltl, by the way, who is their center.
No.
My answer is still kind of no, because both Siakam and Barnes really like to operate in the same areas. They like to operate in that mid-range area. They like to operate in the mid-post. And by the way, if you get Damian Lillard, then you're reducing the number of on-ball reps for Scotty, which means he's going to operate in that like mid-range, mid-post area even more often, or he's going to have to learn to shoot, right? Like, or he's going to have to space the court and knock down threes. And, Scotty's a great worker and like a really good human being. I am willing to hear out an argument for Scotty being able to shoot at some point. I just don't know that it's going to happen this year from a floor spacing perspective, or maybe even next year, given the evidence that we have within the NBA and throughout his prep career so far. So so you still have a flawed roster at that point, right? And you have Poeltl, by the way, who is a non-spacer. So you're starting essentially 3 non-floor spacers in Siakam, Barnes, and Jakob Poeltl. And for those of you that say like, oh, Pascal, he can really shoot, like he's still able to shoot. You look at his last 3 seasons, Pascal has not really shot it. He's taken 4 3-point attempts per game and made them only at 32%. You could maybe make a case to me that a lot of those are somewhat difficult pull-up shots and that Lillard would attract attention away from him. but I'm still not quite there. I think that what Swarlasers brings up is right. You are kind of just swapping Fred for Damian Lillard here in this circumstance, and Damian Lillard is way better than Fred.
But you're losing all the other assets along with it to make that swap.
And you're potentially losing OG as well.
Yes, and maybe your floor spacing, because you don't get it done with just OG either. I mean, somebody's going to either ask for Grady Dick, or you're going to have to put Gary Trent Jr. because of money stuff. I mean, maybe, I know we're going to talk about the Suns and Ayton in a second, so maybe you don't end up having to give away as much if that happened. But I actually want to, can I ask you, do we have to keep this table? I want to ask, is there an argument? Can you make the argument they should actually make Siakam moved in this to a third team? You probably don't have to give up pretty much anything else, Sam.
No.
And then you just add Dame to OG, to Barnes, to Grady Dick, to everybody else on your roster.
No, because you still can't win a title with that roster.
I agree. So here's my question then, though. If you don't think Scotty Barnes is a number 2, what does that say about how we feel about Scotty Barnes?
Well, I think he can be a number 2 and potentially even a number 1 long term.
Just not in this window of Damian Lillard.
The problem is that we are talking about, with Damian Lillard, in my opinion, a 2-year window here.
Yep.
Where he is 34 next year and 35. Like, I'm willing to say Damian Lillard is going to be amazing even at 35 years old. But once you get past that, I think you do start to see real diminishing returns. Like, what does this look like? I guess if it's Lillard, OG, Barnes, maybe like Gary Trent at that point you keep, and then Pirtle. Well, it kind of looks like a lot of the old teams that he had in Portland, right?
Yeah.
So I'm struggling to see it. The argument in favor of doing this, if you're Toronto, is that it gets you one step closer, right? So you have Damian Lillard, you have Pascal Siakam, you then have this, you have Jakob Poeltl, depending on what you can keep. If you keep Grady Dick, if you keep Precious Achiuwa, everything like that, you can move them for pieces that make sense on the periphery, maybe, of this roster, and it gets you closer to being a contender. Does that move you in any way, shape, or form?
And then the other thing, we talked about this a little bit with Giannis. Does this help you re-sign Pascal? With this move?
I think Pascal would re-sign. Like, Pascal can get more money from Toronto than from anybody. I think if they offered Pascal Siakam real money, like close to the max, he'd sign. Like, I can't imagine he wouldn't sign that, because he can get more from them than from everybody, and it seems like he's happy in Toronto. So to me, it's not like you have to keep Siakam. It's like, I think they just have to make a shit or get off the pot decision with Siakam on some level. So the question for me on the Raptors is the case that this gets you closer to a title, where you then have basically a 2-year window that you're building toward. Are you close enough to a title with Damian Lillard, Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl, and then everything else that you have? Maybe you still have Gary Trent. Maybe you still have Grady Dick. Maybe you still have Precious Achiuwa. I would guess you have maybe one of those 3 assets moving forward. Does that bring you close enough to a title? And to me, I don't think so. Like, given the inherent roster flaws of a front court of Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam, Jakob Poeltl, in terms of fit, not in terms of the talent of any of those 3 players, all of whom I think are terrific. And Siakam's an all-NBA player. I think Scotty Barnes has an immense amount of potential and talent. And then Jakob Poeltl is a league average starting center, maybe slightly above that. It's just the fit that doesn't really work for me of that group, and you get real diminishing returns on them. So if you're going to do that, in my opinion, if you're acquiring Damian Lillard without including Scottie Barnes in a deal, I think you're setting yourself up for a situation where if this is a struggle a little bit early in the season, the next logical move is moving Scottie Barnes. And that's not really a conversation that Toronto wants. And by Toronto, I mean their front office. Like, it seems like Scottie Barnes is not going anywhere in this deal, like straight up. And I don't blame them for it. Scottie Barnes is a terrific player, terrific, like long-term upside piece who is 6'9", can handle the ball and create in transition and can pass and has potential defensively, all of it. What I am struggling with is just the overall fit of this roster. To me, if you're doing a Dame deal, the guy that makes sense to move is Scottie, because a roster that is Damian Lillard, OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Gary Trent, and Jakob Poeltl makes a lot more sense when you're trying to win in 2024, which is what you should be doing if you're acquiring Damian Lillard, than a Damian Lillard, Scottie Barnes, Pascal Siakam, Jakob Poeltl mix.
So I guess that's where I was trying to go with the Pascal, but didn't account for the age. So the timelines fit better, is, in your opinion, even though you're super high on Scottie, you're saying you move Scottie, and now the timelines in Toronto make a lot more sense.
I want to be clear. I'm not advocating any of this. I would just not acquire Damian Lillard if I was Toronto.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to say, Sam, is I feel like we're talking in circles of, oh, what do we think about a Dame, Scottie, Siakam? Oh, we don't like it. Well, then I ask, well, would you trade Siakam and make it a Dame, OG, Scottie Barnes? And for the record, I am a Scottie Barnes fan, and I think he's a really good player, and it would be interesting to see what he looked like in that role. And it was a no. And then we say, should we consider trading Scottie Barnes? And we say no. So it's like, why are we trying to trade Dame to Toronto then if we don't like any of the trades that essentially have to happen, right? One of those three guys has to be involved. This can't happen to Toronto without
the reason we're talking about this. The reason we're talking about this is because it seems like Toronto is interested.
Or Dame's representation got Toronto interested to get Miami to bump their offer?
I have not gotten that impression.
Okay.
I'm willing to hear out that conspiracy theory.
I just like to throw that stuff.
I have not heard that. I think that it is genuine that they're discussing it. So here's the wrench I want to throw in this now, right?
Yep.
What if you could keep OG Anunoby and Scottie and Pascal and everything, and you could do Gary Trent, Grady Dick, Precious Achiuwa, a bunch of picks, and like Chris Boucher, et cetera, all that stuff, like the filler, Thad Young, Otto Porter, everything like that. Because they have the mechanism to do a deal that does not involve OG Anunoby, Scottie Barnes, Siakam, Poeltl, everything like that. Financially, they can do it. Like, you can come up with a trade that makes sense for them. The question then is, does that actually set up as a better offer than what Miami is offering? Would you rather have Grady Dick, Precious Achiuwa, the Gary Trent deal, whatever you can get for Gary Trent, maybe Phoenix is interested in Gary Trent, and you could do Trent and Nurkic for Ayton or something like that.
D-Rock just put it in. I mean, then you send a couple of those guys or one of those guys to Phoenix along with Nurkic, and then you get Ayton back. And I know we'll talk about this, but I think we both like the idea of Ayton. I think in that scenario, Sam, you just do it if you're Toronto. Like, you just go for it, and let's see. Let's do it. Let's find out.
Yeah. If you're not moving any of their starters, I'm a lot more interested in this from Toronto's perspective than I am. The question is, do you think that is a better offer than what Miami's best offer is, basically?
I mean, I think it can get there because Toronto can offer picks as well. So I guess it would. So what are we matching up young prospects? We got Jaime and Jovic. Is the
Jaime,
best
Grady Dick, and then Jaime and Jovic. Yeah, I see how you're doing this. Yeah, Jaime and Jovic versus
Grady Dick.
Grady Dick and Precious, who you're going to have to pay here, by the way, momentarily with Precious.
I feel like Grady Dick still has the best upside of that group. And so I feel like Grady Dick plus I believe the draft pick packages are somewhat similar. I think Toronto can offer 2 firsts in the future because of what they owe to San Antonio. I believe so. Yeah, I mean, I think it's as good as what they could get from Miami. I think I would rather have Grady Dick than either one of the Miami Heat prospects, I think is where I'm at.
Okay, so I'm sharing screen. Shout out to the folks at Fanspo here. You can see the screen now.
Well, yeah, but Miami could still get Ayton to Portland just like Toronto can. I mean, they may have the best extra piece in terms of sending Caleb Martin. I don't know who. I mean, Toronto has some options I guess they could send as well, obviously. But I think the Ayton thing has to be a wash between the two because both teams have a mechanism to do that. Do we agree there, Sam?
That the Ayton thing has to be a wash, maybe.
Like someone is saying that Miami doesn't have the mechanism to get Ayton to Portland, but I think either team it works, or either team can make it happen.
Yeah, Caleb Martin, I think, can do that. My dog is going nuts. Bryce, keep talking while I try and figure this out and try and figure out what the dog is going on.
Yeah, so I feel like that is something we just have to consider both teams are able to do, is the Nurkic goes to Phoenix and Ayton goes to Portland, and that's how you get this done. Listen, Brian, I'm with you. When I first heard the Nurkic and the DeAndre Ayton stuff, I was kind of out as well, and I think Sam and I will talk about that a little bit more in depth. I feel a little bit better about it if you're getting a Caleb Martin or one of these pieces from Toronto. I don't know why Phoenix wants to do it, but I do think it makes sense for Portland to bring DeAndre Ayton in that scenario. I think he makes sense with their young core.
Is this a better deal than what Toronto than what Miami can offer? It's Gary Trent, Chris Boucher, Thad Young, Grady Dick, 2 first rounders, and I'll throw in Precious as well. Because I forgot Precious here. Give me a second. Adjust. And you can throw back what you need to throw back from everybody there. So
Gary Trent on an expiring.
Is this better than what Miami can offer? It's basically cash neutral.
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say Miami can't offer more than 2 first-round picks either, right?
You can do a 3-teamer with like Utah or Oklahoma City to get the picks. You could do 3 if you need to. Ankeet brings up 50% tax. I just want to be like clear. The tax thing for Toronto is like totally bullshit. Like if your accountants can't figure out the tax situation in Toronto, like you have failed on some level as an NBA player that is American. What I do think is interesting about Toronto is I think that Damian Lillard is quite close with DeMar DeRozan. And I wonder if there is some, like I've heard that speculated as a reason why there's not a lot of excitement for Dame in Toronto. Maybe that could have a thing to do with it. I don't know that. That makes more sense to me than the tax thing though. Because again, I think that you can make the tax side work for sure. Yeah. So then if you wanted to add on top of this, you could adjust this and make it a 3-team deal. So the deal was Precious Grady, Gary Trent, Thad Young, Chris Boucher. You add the 3rd team. You're adding Phoenix here, who is here. You're sending Gary Trent to the Suns. You're sending DeAndre to the Blazers. And then what? You're sending, I guess, Thad Young to the Suns, right?
Nurkic as
Oh,
well.
no, you're sending Nurkic. That's right. Undo that. You're sending Yusuf to the Suns. Outgoing 32, incoming 35. You then have to, I think this is where you have to add a fourth team as well, to be honest. Like you'd have to, this is where you might add in like a Brooklyn or someone who has someone that has available roster spots, because the only way that you can do Nurkic and Trent or Nurkic and Anunoby or whatever is you have to send out like Goodwin and there's one more, Ish Wainwright to the Nets, maybe. So now you have outgoing 36 because the Suns can't take back more than what they bring in a deal. So the Raptors are sending out all of that. They're getting back Lillard. I mean, honestly, like maybe they would like Ish Wainwright and Jordan Goodwin just because they're sending out so many bodies. So, you know, maybe we can just delete the Nets here. Incoming 49.5, outgoing, all of that. Who am I missing? Did I get rid of Thad Young? I think I did. Yeah, so Thad Young has to go to the Blazers here. Okay, so if you wanted to do something like this, if the Suns would do this, I don't know if they would have interest in Trent, and that maybe this is where we can transition into the Suns piece of this, because I find that really interesting. This is a deal, a 3-team deal between the Blazers, Raptors, and Suns, where in theory you can get Lillard to the Raptors. You don't have to involve OG or Siakam or Barnes or anything. Ayton, Boucher, Young, Thad Young, Grady Dick, Precious Achiuwa, 2 firsts to the Blazers. The Raptors get Lillard, Ish Wainwright, Jordan Goodwin, and the Suns get Gary Trent and Yusuf Nurkic. That's like pretty okay. That's like kind of interesting to me, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I mean, like I said, that's actually
a deal. That's probably the most value I've seen a team get to the Blazers. The question is, would the Suns do Trentyn Nurkic? I don't know the answer to that.
You're not sure if they would take, if Trent is enough to downgrade from Ayton to Nurkic, is what you're saying. You don't know that Trent's enough.
Especially given the idea, because the idea of they have Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant already. Somebody like OG Anunoby or Caleb Martin, I think, makes a lot more sense for them defensively.
Yep.
Than Gary Trent. I will be honest. I think this is more than what Miami can do.
Let me ask you this real quick, just because this is a draft is what, at least what I do and you do, obviously at extremely high level. Who's the better prospect between Grady Dick and Jaime? Like, who's the better get for the Portland Trailblazers between those? Because I know you were as high as anybody on Jaime.
I do really, really like Jaime. It's like a toss-up to me. I would say it's like truly a toss-up.
And how much does Jovic actually, like, how confident are you?
I would rather have Precious than Jovic.
So that's where I'm at as well. Like, essentially it's a competition between Grady Dick and Jaime Jaquez. And I would probably, like, I love guys that can space the floor. And I think Grady Dick is an extremely high feel player. And I think he's going to stay. And obviously Jaime is as well. But I think I would lean Grady Dick. And then I would like those other pieces, assuming the draft picks are relatively similar across the board. Yeah, I think that's a little bit better than what we've done with Miami. And so, yeah, I think that's decent for Damian Lillard. I understand Portland fans who want the moon, especially after you see what Rudy Gobert got the Jazz and all of that. I don't think you're going to get 4 picks and 4 pick swaps.
Yeah. So how is that better than Miami's offer? AJ Marine asks. To me, how is that better than Portland's offer? Or how is that better than Miami's offer? I would rather have the Grady Dick and Precious combination than the Jovic Hawkes combination. And I say that as somebody that is higher on Hawkes than anybody. I like that duo better, I would say.
And so are we missing any other pieces that really make a major factor? Like, that's where I'm wondering where people really question it not being better. Maybe they're thinking Tyler Herro to a third team that nets more first round picks.
First rounder, maybe. Yeah, like I could see that. You could honestly like get to 4 even if you did.
So that
like
changes things, right?
Yeah. So if you did like a swap with Utah, or Oklahoma City, I think owns one of their picks, so it's probably a little bit easier if it's Oklahoma City, where you switch the years of like protections on the picks. You could do 3 of your own picks or 3 first round picks plus whatever you get for Herro in a separate transaction that is somehow tied to this. That then I think becomes more interesting than this offer. I haven't seen any evidence that Miami is willing to do that much yet. So I'm not totally sure what to think of that. But if we're talking just like the Miami offer where they are, offering a couple firsts and Hawkes and Jovic, and maybe you move Caleb Martin in this deal to the Suns, maybe you move OG or maybe you move Herro to a third team. But if you're moving, like if it's all of Herro, Martin, Hawkes, Jovic, that is better, I think, for sure.
The other thing to consider, Sam, is whose picks do you quote unquote trust to be better value in 2026, 2028, 2030 between the Miami Heat and the Toronto Raptors? That's another because we just talked about what with Damian Lillard. You said it 15 minutes ago. 2-3 year window. So which team between the Raptors and the Heat do you trust to be successful post Damian Lillard when you actually convey those picks? Whose picks do you think are going to be more valuable in 2028 and 2030?
I think Toronto is more well positioned because they have the Scotty Barnes asset, obviously.
That's true. Okay.
But I have much more faith like in Miami as an organization.
Yeah.
So I would probably bet against Toronto a little bit more. And that's purely just because of like the Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra, like Miami as well, just like being a glamour market where they consistently have stars there. I do want to shift to Phoenix here momentarily.
Okay. Yeah, let's do it.
Because I've seen some people speculate that it is a downgrade, but not like that big of a downgrade to go from DeAndre Ayton to Jusuf Nurkic. It is an enormous downgrade based on how Jusuf Nurkic played last year. Jusuf Nurkic was not good last season. Like we kind of need to just say that out loud. Maybe he really struggled defensively. He really is not a impactful player on that end anymore. The level to which DeAndre Ayton is a better defensive anchor than Jusuf Nurkic at this point is drastic. Now, what Portland people will tell you is that Nurkic dealt with a calf injury last year and his movement was compromised. That would be the key piece of intel for Phoenix in this deal. Understanding how much Nurkic's movement was compromised last year by this calf injury. If it was just a little bit, then we have problems. And like, I would not want to do this deal if I was Phoenix. If it was a lot, then I think you can make a little bit more of a case for it if you're Phoenix. Now, the next piece of this is what are you getting in addition to this? Because you can't just do a straight Nurkic for Ayton swap. Nurkic makes half as much as DeAndre Ayton does, essentially. What is that level for you, Bryce? Like, what is the cutoff? Would you do Gary Trent and Nurkic for DeAndre Ayton?
No, I think you talked me out of Gary Trent, and I told
I
you
would not.
Yeah,
I'm with you on that.
My borderline is Caleb Martin, and you said it before we recorded. How do we reconcile Caleb Martin? Was it a playoff thing? We're gonna find it. It would be interesting if Caleb Martin ended up on the Suns, and we have Caleb Martin on the Suns, and Gabe Vincent on the Lakers, and Max Strus on the Cavs, and we find out who those dudes are when they're not with the Miami Heat. I'm not saying they won't all be dudes. I'm not saying that. They would all be on playoff teams, and we'd find out how they look in the playoffs compared to what we just saw with the Heat. It just would be interesting. OG is a no-brainer, right? Like, that's done deal for me, absolutely. Let me ask you real quick before I shoot it back to you, Sam. How many games do you think Nurkic's average games played over the last 4 seasons? Now, remember, we did have the COVID seasons where it wasn't 82, so you got to adjust a little bit for that. Last 4 seasons.
45.
40. Okay. DeAndre Ayton is only at 55, but that's still 15 games. My point, and why I think that's so vital to the Suns, don't you want the guy who plays more games for a team who, like, who's the backup center in Phoenix?
Oh, I mean, it's like Chimezie Metu, like that group, basically.
You know what I mean, though? Like, don't you want
Drew Eubanks is there now? Eubanks is salt, like, okay.
Okay, so that maybe there's enough insulation with Eubanks that it's not as big a deal. But I just
Bryce, we saw that center combination last year in Portland, literally, and there was not enough insulation defensively.
So here's my question. Do they not see the importance of the rim gravity lob threat pick and roll guy that Ayton is? Like, do they just say, hey, we got some of the best ISO players in the NBA. Who cares if they have a ball screen and roll guy? We just want Nurkic to be big and strong and an enforcer and all of, like, what is there a money? I know he's making less. Is the money aspect is a little more here than what we're making it out to be? Like,
so here would be my question to you. Is DeAndre that big of a rim runner threat kind of thing?
It's more than Nurkic, right?
I think it's more than Nurkic. Nurkic is probably a better screener than what DeAndre is.
Agreed.
But DeAndre just has so much more like juice athletically at this point. And if you're Frank Vogel, like, you've gotten these guys to play hard before, like, you've gotten them to roll hard to the rim. You've gotten them to do all the things that maybe you do have some concerns about with DeAndre. I'm not saying they're valid or not, but, like, whatever your case is here, right? So I'm kind of, while we're talking, trying to come up with a 4-team deal that makes sense for everybody involved here, with the Utah Jazz maybe getting Tyler Herro. It can be any team, but I'm just placeholding the Jazz because you can do that, right? Let's say, 2026 round 1. I'm just, like, throwing things together. Don't take these as, like, the exact picks. I'm literally just, like, throwing picks in here. 2 picks, Jovic, Hawkes, Ayton. And then I have to get salary matching to the Jazz. So the Jazz would then send out, let's see, I guess it would have to be Talen Horton-Tucker going to the Blazers. And then it would have to be, so outgoing, incoming. I'm, like, trying to find the numbers that makes this make sense with Herro. I don't know that they would want to move Kelly Olynyk in a move like this, frankly. I think Olynyk has real value to the Jazz particularly. I'm not saying if that's right or wrong. Like, maybe it is like a Colin Sexton or something like that. So they bring back Sexton, Horton-Tucker. I mean, this is just me like trying, and then you send another first to the Blazers, let's say. How close am I with this while we're talking? This is a failure. The Heat can't do this. They can only take back 39-6. Why am I failing? Bryce, talk while I figure this out.
Well, yeah, I'm just thinking through here now that the Jazz are, they're having to send out a little bit to bring in Tyler Herro now with the first round pick, along with, if you're talking about some guys that at least mean a little bit. And so, like,
this is actually a little bit more difficult than what I thought.
Yeah.
To craft a 4-team deal. Like, you'd almost have to, like, does it have to involve Kyle Lowry?
So you sent out Caleb and the two rookies. Oh, but you got to send out more and Herro. Oh, so even Herro's not enough with those guys.
Yeah, I still have to send out more money. That only gets you to 39-6. The Heat have to be a lot closer.
I'm interested here, just reading through some of the comments. I don't want to say Ayton hate, so guys don't take it that way, but just the amount of people who are kind of like, I don't want Ayton. He's not a winner. He's, kind of the vibes. It's just interesting that that's kind of the perception. I've kind of I know him and Monty Williams had their thing. I think this is almost why I want this to happen. I want to see Ayton in Portland and see, is it a DeAndre Ayton thing? Is it an environment thing? Is he just need to get to a new place? It's interesting that there's that he kind of has that reputation with fans around the NBA.
I agree. The Heat, like, they can only, though, they're over the second apron, so that's why.
Yeah, I bet it has to be Duncan or Lowry.
It probably has to be Duncan, which is why this is weird. Well, I don't know. I'm thrown. I'm very thrown. It could, like, look, I know I can throw Duncan, but I don't think anybody's going to be all that enthused about about like having to take Duncan in a deal, which is why I'm trying to avoid that.
Lowry's at least expiring, right, Kyle?
Lowry's expiring. I guess you could do like Lowry to no, because that's way too much money going to Utah. No, I need to like really sit down and mess with this a little bit. The fact that Caleb Martin only makes 6.8 million is very complicated with something like this. Very, very complicated with something like this. Yeah, I'm a little bit off.
And I know we talked about it, Sam, last episode, in terms of we trust the Miami Heat as much as any organization to build around and all of that. It's just, it would still make me a little uncomfortable. We just talked about losing Max Strus and Gabe Vincent, and now you're sending out Caleb Martin and Herro and either Lowry. Like, you're a lot of those guys are gone, and there's not a whole lot of time between this, training camp and the start of the season. It would still make me a little uneasy, even though I stand by what we said last week as well.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. Now, if the big thing for Portland here in something like this, I'm going to stop sharing this because I'm like all thrown off in terms of the money. I guess like you could just do like send a bunch out to Utah or whatever, but the big thing for Portland here is that getting off the Nurkic deal without having to send out an asset is actually like kind of wild if they could do this. Like, if they could find a way for a team like Phoenix to take back Yusuf Nurkic for DeAndre Ayton, and then Portland can just use one of the assets they get in this other side of the deal. Maybe it's Anunoby, maybe it's Gary Trent, maybe it's Caleb Martin to send elsewhere. That is like a very real value add. The question I would ask you there is, if it's Anunoby, I feel like then you might want like an additional pick maybe if you're Portland.
Yeah.
Because
why would I not just take OG?
Yeah, why would you not just take OG Anunoby at that point?
Yes.
Right? But Phoenix can't really give you that additional pick. So that becomes more complicated. The whole thing is a mess. The whole thing is,
as you were going through that, I'm like, if I'm the Blazers, yeah, like I'm excited about DeAndre Ayton, but if I'm going to send Nurkic and OG for Ayton in this, I'll just take OG. I'll take OG to Portland and mix him in with my young core and feel really good about that.
I like the idea of Ayton in Portland. So let's shift this maybe to DeAndre in Portland a little bit more as a potential outcome here. And, if this happens, like we'll talk about it a little bit more, but I love the idea of DeAndre being like a potential defensive anchor, being like a guy who's on a relatively similar age timeline to Scoot, to Chris Murray, to all the other guys that they have here. And using his athleticism and scoring ability to take some pressure off of Scoot Henderson as a scorer. That feels like a valuable piece for everybody involved to me.
And I feel like DeAndre would be happy because, listen, like I'm not connected anywhere with the Suns. I mean, with any team really. I feel like DeAndre wants a bigger role, Sam. He ain't getting that in Phoenix, right? He is the fourth option every single night. And the fourth option after those three options, there's not a whole lot left. I think it would be interesting to see what DeAndre Ayton is. Would he be the second option in Portland? You could very easily.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to prioritize Scoot. You have Shaden. You still have Simons, Jeremy Grant, but I think Jeremy Grant would understand what he is in that team and eventually probably gets moved. I'm not saying it works, Sam. I'm not saying he's going to blow up the way Lowry did in Utah, but I would be interested. If I'm Portland, I would want to see. And so I think that I think it makes sense. And like at the very worst, it gives Scoot a pick and roll big man, a guy that plays pretty good drop coverage behind him as they learn to navigate screens. And it's a good young core. And like I said, eventually you're going to trade Jeremy Grant for some assets, whether it's at the deadline or next offseason. So I think it puts the Portland rebuild in a good situation. They have a head start on this thing with some of the young talent they already have.
They do, yeah. And again, you'd then be on the age timeline.
Yeah.
All on a similar age timeline, which is really interesting and valuable. Just going to answer some questions here.
Yep.
CFTV data asks, do you think Indiana has any interest in Ayton nowadays? My guess is no. They have re-signed Miles Turner onto a deal that is half as expensive as DeAndre, and Miles Turner is frankly just a better player at this point. I know the age timeline case you could maybe make, but I'd just rather have Turner. The problem with Ayton in Portland is his contract. I think he could be a negative value contract as soon as next season. The thing is that it is probably like a slightly negative value contract right now, but the shorter time that you get, like after the season, you'd only have 2 years left on his deal, right? It's really hard to have like a significantly negative contract on a 2-year deal if the player is like producing. Like DeAndre would probably average 20 points a game, 10 rebounds, and would be like okay on defense at the very least in Portland. I don't really think that would be seen as all that negative, in my opinion, at least league wide. The problem that I'm struggling with Miami now is trying to find a way for them. I kind of wonder if they just have to take back Nurkic if they want to do this deal.
Isn't it funny that all of a sudden Nurkic is at the center of this and deciding what happens? And like you said earlier, this is what makes things so complicated. I've also, as we've talked through this, if you're Portland, and I know it's not 1-to-1, but just in general, would you rather have DeAndre Ayton out of this or OG Anunoby out of this? In a vacuum.
If I'm Portland?
If you're Portland,
it's a great question.
I know it's not 1-to-1, Sam, because the assets aren't coming from the same place. So it's an unfair question. It's kind of fair, but not really. But at the end of the day, OG on an expiring, Ayton under contract, but which one of those, if you had to choose a deal that netted you Ayton or a deal that netted you OG, which one would you take?
I would rather have. I think I would rather have Ayton for Portland, given their situation and given that OG is also about to be extremely expensive and he has the ability to potentially leave. Anunoby is a more valuable player.
Agreed.
But he's going to make more than Ayton next year. And the risk factor of him leaving to go somewhere else would worry me. If OG Anunoby was willing to sign this like extension that should be on the table, that makes all the sense in the world to me. Like, sure, do that. Great. Let's like lock it in. You know what I mean? I just don't know that I see it. You know, like maybe I'm wrong. Like maybe he'd just be ecstatic to have the role that he's seemingly wanted for years upon years.
Yeah,
right?
I mean,
Maybe
again,
that's the
just like we said
reality.
with Ayton, he goes in there and gets an offensive role. I think he fits in well. Again, I think he fits with the young core still. And then I always like to tie things back to the top 14 protected. So I assume Portland's going to have their draft pick. They're going to have their pick of a bunch of different big men to choose from in the draft this season. I think there's some really good guys, so I'm like, hey, I would keep OG and then I'll draft Donovan Klingen or Alex Sarr or whoever. And I got a pretty good group of 4 guys now on a similar timeline. So it just got me thinking. Now that there's not going to be some good wings in the draft as well. I mean, somebody could say, well, they could draft Ron Holland and you get DeAndre Ayton and it's the same thing. But I think OG is probably the better player. But as you said, it's the contract situation as well.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I'm like still sitting here trying to crack the numbers on a 4-team like Blazers, Heat, Suns, Jazz deal, and my brain is just like breaking. Here's the last point that we'll finish on while I try and figure this out. Chicago does not make any sense here. Like you can't really construct a deal with Chicago that you can line up well, right?
Yeah. And yeah, OG does have a player option next year, guys, for just under 20 million that, it doesn't make sense for him to, yeah. I mean, whenever I did the bowl, I started it, Sam, and the first thing I put in my notes, Sam, was, I don't understand what the deal is here, ? So I kind of gave up on it right away and started playing around with Raptors trades because that was just a lot more fun to do. And I text my Raptors friends asking them for their trades and stuff like that. It has to be, I don't know. It's got to involve Levine. And then, I didn't see it. I don't think we need to spend, in my opinion, I don't know that we need to spend a bunch of time with it. Doesn't sound like it's as talked about as Toronto. And it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. A couple other things here. Buddy Hield has been discussed in a trade now. I think I might like wait to do a bit of a deeper dive on Buddy until later in the week. But do you have any thoughts on Buddy at this point?
I mean, he can shoot. He can really shoot it. I would take him in Detroit. A young team always needs shooting. I don't know what Buddy wants. I don't know what new contract he wants. It sounds like that's what's going on in Indiana. But yeah, I mean, I think he makes sense for quite a few teams in terms of you need a guy that can space the floor, and that's of high value in the NBA. So it'll be interesting to see what his market ends up being. And that may be a little bit based off, again, what kind of contracts he's wanting, extension, all of that.
Okay. Conclusions here. First, if Toronto can do this without including Anunoby or Barnes, I am intrigued.
Same.
I struggle that is the closest I've gotten to formulating a deal like this. I do not think Toronto will move Scotty straight up. but the closest I've gotten is like Trent in Nurkic to Phoenix. You know, all of the random stuff that we talked about. And then Ayton to Portland, along with Grady Dick, Precious, a couple of picks, and the salary ballast, right?
Yep.
That gets Nurkic off the books. It gets them, basically 4 first-round picks plus Ayton. That's like a real monster package if the Suns are willing to take Gary Trent as the upgrade on the wing. I would personally not want that. If I was Phoenix, I would want something greater if I am including all of this. It then becomes a circumstance where we're trying to square the circle of just straight up, is Grady Dick, Precious, 2 or 3 first-round picks a better asset package than Hawkes, Jovic, 3 first-round picks, whatever you get for Tyler Herro at that point, right?
And that proved to be a little more difficult than we thought, at least with the team we tried.
One avenue we didn't consider here is, can you do just like a 3-team deal with the Suns where it's, Lillard to the Heat, Kyle Lowry to the Blazers as like the salary ballast, and then Nurkic to the Suns. I'll put this up on the screen while I'm doing it here. Hawkes to the Blazers, and then Jovic to the Blazers. That gets us to 35. We need 62. So Caleb Martin then goes to the Suns. So that's your piece of this. So incoming Blazers are probably fine there. That's fine. And then that's fine. And then a bunch of picks. To
the Blazers.
Let's say 2026 first to the Blazers, 2028 first to the Blazers. Again, don't take these as, dead on things. I'm just kind of trying to like formulate deals here. What do I need? I need to cut 3.2 from Miami. That's actually it's quite a bit easier. It's then you can just throw in like Haywood Highsmith to the Suns, and then I think they kind of want Orlando Robinson, but I don't know that they would I don't know that they'd let Orlando Robinson like kill that deal. So why am I? Oh, he just signed. That's right. I forgot he signed that deal this year. They have options though.
Yep.
At this point. Bryce, talk while I find this final like piece here.
Yeah. So you're still getting Ayton. I think the Suns now have a deal that they at least consider. I think we both said no to Gary Trent Jr., but I think we're both, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Sam, but I think we're both a little closer if it's Caleb Martin. It still comes down to what we talked about earlier with the Jovic, the Jaime Jaquez versus Grady Dick, Precious. Kyle Lowry's an expiring. I don't hate the idea of Kyle Lowry in Portland, just, maybe helping scoot along for a year. I know we mentioned this last week with the NFL game where they had the cameras caught Chauncey and Kyle Lowry in a suite together, watching the game. But I think it really comes down to the young assets and just how you feel, I guess, about Grady Dick versus Jaime Jaquez versus, again, whose picks make the most sense. What kind of pick can the Heat get for Tyler Herro if we were going to turn it into a 4-team deal where we added in yet another pick? I think that would be a huge part of it, is what is Tyler Herro's actual value around the league, and can he bring in a legitimate first-round pick? So,
yeah, this is bizarrely more difficult than what I thought in terms of like trying to find the way to get the Suns to, or the Heat, like to the numbers that they need, basically. I mean, like, I wonder if you could just do like Hero then for, you know, like, would you do Hero for Dinwiddie at that point if you're the Heat? And then like you get a, you know, they give up a pick as well.
So that's just salary matching stuff.
Yeah, and salary matching and trying to make numbers work and kind of all of it, I guess. Because what you can't do Royce. It needs to be like 6 million. Man, this is way harder than what I thought. To be honest with you,
this is why all these teams that whenever like these $10 to $15 million contracts prove to be very valuable at a certain point, Sam, for stuff like this. Because, and I think somebody was talking about the Lakers the other day, how many contracts they have in like the 10 to 13, 14, $15 million window. Those things I feel like just end up making things easier.
So this is like the closest I could come up with. Maybe you send that. Yeah, hold on. You have to send this Brooklyn pick to the Blazers, I guess. But why didn't you go? Why are you annoying me? Yeah, so they have 3 picks here. I don't know why it's not. Yeah, there it is. Okay. So yeah, I can finagle this a number of different ways where this goes back to the Heat, I guess, and then they send out 2030 maybe to the Blazers.
Dab happens one over here to open up another can of worms that I wanted to ask you about, which is Dame for Cat.
That's a hard pass for me. For everybody involved. Except for the Wolves, where it's like, oh my God, let's do it. But okay, so this is like the closest I can get on a Heat for Lillard deal, I think. Where the Heat get Lillard, Spencer Dinwiddie, Daron Sharp in a first, but they're sending out 3 firsts, 2026, 2028, and 30. So essentially net 2 firsts. Hawkes, Jovic, Lowry, Hero, Caleb Martin, Haywood Highsmith for Lillard, Dinwiddie, Daron Sharp. The Blazers get Ayton, Lowry is the expiring, Hawkes, Jovic, and 3 firsts for Lillard and Nurkic. The Suns get Nurkic, Caleb Martin, Haywood Highsmith for DeAndre. The Nets get Hero for Dinwiddie, Sharp, and a first.
So to me, this essentially comes down based off what we put together earlier. Do you value the extra Miami first round pick more than how much better, in my opinion, Grady Dick, Precious, and those guys are than Hawkes and Jovic? And 1 year of the veteran experience of Kyle Lowry tutoring Scoot Henderson.
Do I value that more? I think this is a better deal. Let's assume that like Phoenix won't do it for Trent and would only do it for OG, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That changes a lot.
And that changes a lot in the conversation. I think this is a deal that makes sense to me. This is a deal structure that makes like an actual amount of sense to me.
You're talking all the way around because we don't think Phoenix would do Gary Trent.
I'm questionable, maybe is the way to put it.
We're a hard no, but you're questionable on whether Phoenix would. I'm a hard no.
I'm a hard no. Yeah, okay. I'd rather just have DeAndre. In this construct, the Blazers end up with Ayton, Lowry, Hawkes, Jovic, and 3 firsts. That's a good deal for Damian Lillard. And you get off the Nurkic deal, which is worth a first on its own.
Kyle Lowry's expiring.
Kyle Lowry's expiring, so you get a bunch of money back moving forward. This is probably the closest structure I've seen, unless the Suns are willing to take back Gary Trent, and then the Raptor structure makes the most sense. Because at the end of the day, if I'm Toronto and I'm including OG Anunoby, I probably don't want to include one of Precious or Grady at that point.
Correct.
So this is probably the one that lines up most for me, at least. And like, look, the Heat end up with like Spencer Dinwiddie, who's like fairly interesting as well on some level. He's the replacement there for Lowry. And look, like we're kind of shitting, like I don't mean to shit on Gary Trent. I think Gary Trent's a valuable player. Sure, he just has like overlap with what Phoenix has already.
It's the roster in Phoenix. It has nothing to do with Gary Trent. It's just what player that we're talking about sending to Phoenix makes the most sense for that roster. And, you know, I don't know who I would say is better between Caleb Martin and Gary Trent Jr., but for Phoenix, Caleb Martin makes a whole lot more sense.
Yeah. I think Caleb Martin makes a lot more sense for this Phoenix team because he's a little bit better defensively.
Agreed.
And because that like level of, I would rather have Caleb Martin. This is close, at least to me, but you can come up with deals that make sense across the board here. It's just going to be what the Blazers prefer. And here's the thing, like DeAndre being involved makes this deal a lot better, in my opinion, for Portland.
I mean, there's no way you're getting anything better for Nurkic than getting DeAndre Ayton back. I mean, like what else is happening? If Nurkic isn't involved in this deal, what do they do with him, Sam?
I don't have an answer to that. Truly, I don't have an answer to that. Which is why I think they probably have made it a point to move him in these deals. This is the one that makes the most sense across the board to me, unless Toronto is willing to do OG and like Precious and Grady Dick, and then that's like a whole can of worms, and I would not do that deal if I was Toronto. So Heat, Blazers, Suns, Nets makes the most sense to me right now, is where I'm at.
Yeah, because like you say, if OG's going to the Suns, then Toronto's going like, hey, we're already giving up OG Anunoby. Like, it's not our fault you're not keeping him and sending him on to Phoenix. We can't give up all these other assets along with it. And so you're probably not getting quite the same haul. So I think it's interesting. It's always fun to play with it. It's interesting when you get into it, like you were, Sam, and it's like, man, it's a little more complex than what we thought, and trying to make the money work and all of that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's take a quick commercial break, and then we're going to dive into the NBL. All right. Let's talk about the Mavs real quick, and then we'll talk about the NBL Blitz. Okay, we're back. Bryce Simon, Jason Kidd made comments over the weekend to Marc Stein on a podcast saying that Derek Lively and Omax Prosper are very real candidates to start the year. I don't think he committed to anything. I think he would love it if they would both win the job, but made it clear that they are real candidates to be starters for Dallas in the preseason, and certainly potentially moving forward into the first game. When you heard that Omax and Derek Lively were potential starters for the Dallas Mavericks, what was your immediate reaction?
I was surprised because I have gone through all 30 teams over at Draft Digest and written my NBA draft recaps. And in my article, I said, hey, the Mavericks have a roster where they can kind of bring these guys along slowly, right? They can kind of bring them off the bench and they don't have to put a lot of pressure on them. With that said, and I'm so sorry if you can, I swear if you can hear my kid crying in the background, he's just upset from a long day playing outside and he's getting a bath right now. So that's the crying. So.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good.
I apologize for that. I love Omax, Sam. Like he was one of my guys. I watched a ton of Omax Prosper last year. Can I make a quick pitch for why I think maybe it makes sense? Like, I don't even know that I believe this, but can I make a quick pitch?
Yeah, please. I love it.
So I think you're essentially putting these guys in a lineup where you're only asking them to do what they are theoretically built to do. With Kyrie, with Luka, you don't need either one to handle the ball. With Grant Williams, you're spacing the floor. Derek Lively, all he has to do is play finish around the rim and defend. Omax, all you have to do is run the floor really hard, offensive rebound, defend the other teams, maybe not even their best wing, because Grant Williams may be able to do that, but be a really good defender. He chases guys off screens actually really, really well. Like if you're a nerd and you want to watch off ball screen navigation, go watch Omax Prosper. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. And just let them do that. And then, Sam, you have 8 or 9 guys that you can decide every night to be your second unit and just let them be as good as possible. So that is maybe not a pitch I believe in, but maybe makes sense.
So I think that, how do I want to go about this? I think the theoretical idea of Omax and Derek Lively and what they can be in the future makes all of the sense in the world for Dallas as a starter or as starters. And I loved their draft. I loved every single thing that they did.
I love their whole offseason.
Yep. They built defense around Kyrie and Luka, which is what you have to do if you're going to build around those two moving forward. I find it hard to believe that particularly Lively, I will say, will be ready to be an NBA caliber starting center from day one.
That's right.
And I love Derek Lively. I thought he was the best defensive player in college basketball by the time February and March rolled around last year. I just think it's going to be a minute for him. Last year, it was a minute. It took him until really January, I would say, like late January, to reach the point where he became a lottery pick or a potential lottery style talent. Omax, I think, has a better case for it. It really depends on a very simple question. Do you think Omax can guard point of attack ball handlers and like can really be a strong, high level defensive presence on perimeter initiators from day one? Because that's what you need him to be for him to be a starter. So you can take the pressure off of Kyrie and Luka and have a little bit more like versatility in terms of lineups and rosters.
So that's the caveat. That's where as much as I love Omax and and Omax is an incredible young man on top of everything else.
Awesome human being. Awesome. Unbelievable human being.
Unbelievable human being.
One of the most like impressive, emotionally mature, like young 20s kids I've met, point blank.
Yeah. I've had the opportunity to speak with him and blew me away with the conversation I was able to have.
Yes.
I don't think that's what he does best. I don't think that that's setting him up for success. And I don't think that that's the role he's best used as, is like, hey, go guard Steph Curry tonight, or even SGA. I don't think those are the matchups I see for Omax. And so to answer your question is no. The other thing about Lively, Sam, he only played 20 minutes a game last year in college. You know, now you're making the jump to the NBA and the physicality and all of that. Like, how many minutes is he gonna be able to play on top of it? Now, you can still start him and only play him 24 minutes a night if you really needed to, but that's another interesting thing. So again, I wanted to have some fun and make the argument. I'm not sure I believed everything I said. I believe it long. So that's the other thing I looked up. Just if you look at the contracts on the roster in 25-26 are all these 5 guys, Hardy, Kleba, and Powell. And then 4 of the 5 are in the, so it's like 2 years from now, this makes a lot of sense. I think it would be kind of cool if they started building it now, but you're also in win this year mode with Luka and Kyrie, especially after what happened last year.
Yeah. So here's the thing that's interesting to me about this, at least. I think that Omax is great running off of screens with like against guys like JJ Redick or somebody, Jordan
Go
Hawkins.
go watch the UConn. Go watch the UConn film. Like, guys,
Yeah.
go watch the UConn film.
Stands out to me. He's fucking phenomenal at it. He's great at it.
Yep.
He's also good against bigger wings defensively and can manage those guys well. I think Josh Green does a better job on point of attack players than what he does. Josh is much smaller than Omax, though. So if it's a bigger wing, Josh definitely makes sense. And Josh is going to be drastically better than Omax is on offense to start the year. For the whole year, let's say. Omax has some upside offensively, and I don't want to minimize that.
Yeah.
But Josh Green is in his 4th year in the NBA. He really came on by the end of the year last year. On top of it, I love the synergy of him and Kyrie together, of what I think could be a really interesting change of pace for the Luka lineups, where Luka likes to play more slow, deliberate style of play, obviously, as everybody knows. Kyrie likes to push tempo, and Josh Green is a great running partner for Kyrie. So almost what I would do if I was Dallas in this circumstance, I would start Josh Green and Kyrie. I'd take them out after like 4 or 5 minutes or so, and then bring them back to run the second unit at like the 10-minute mark, 10 minutes into the game with 2 minutes left in the first quarter, when you take Luka out, and let Kyrie come in to run the second unit, because you're obviously going to stagger Kyrie and Luka as much as you can. And then just run Josh and Kyrie together as like your second unit. Like, we're going up and down the court, we're sprinting, we're trying to create in transition, we're changing we're trying to dictate the tempo of the game in a different way for that 7-minute stretch or whatever. And on top of it, we think we can really take advantage of those. So we want to up the possession totals when Kyrie is on the court, because he is so good. And a big marginal advantage for us as an organization, if I was Dallas, is being able to have one of Kyrie or Luka on the court at all times, which means my bench units should be amazing.
They're going to be better anyway. You don't have to keep I want to put Omax and Lively with that run. Then I want to put Omax and Lively with what you're just talking about there, because if Kyrie wants to run the floor, put Lively running the nail and let Omax run. And I mean, Omax may beat everybody down the floor. He might get down the floor before Lively anyway. Like, let those guys, and then give them a shooter, someone that can knock down shots with them. Put Seth Curry out there with them or whatever, and let him space. That's a lot of fun. That's a league pass every night type of team. Now, that backcourt doesn't guard extremely well, but the guys around them, Sam, theoretically can make up for it with Omax, Green, and Lively protecting the rim.
Then the question is, like, who do you bring in when you take Kyrie and Josh Green off? It's you can bring in Tim Hardaway and Maxey. You can bring in you can do a lot of different things. You can bring in Tim Hardaway and Dante Exum. Like, you can do a number of different things. They're pretty deep, and they have like a lot of really, really interesting chess pieces, maybe is the way to put it. But Dallas is a really fun team. Like, somebody in the comments just asked, like, are y'all really talking about Dallas as rookies? I think it's an awesome conversation. I think Dallas is going to be like one of the most intriguing, exciting teams in the league. And the coach just said he's planning on starting rookies.
And for the record, I really like Jaden Hardy. I think Jaden Hardy.
I do too.
Really
That's the
good.
other piece of this too. Yeah.
I know you've had this discussion, Sam. Listen, I'm not. The Ignite's going to be fascinating this year. Watched another one of their games today because they're overplaying in the Intercontinental, whatever. And so I was, Matas didn't play, but the other guys did. But I don't know how Hardy fell. Was where I was trying to get to with that. I don't know how he fell. I wanted the Pistons to take him in the second round. They had a chance. They didn't. The dude is a good player. I watched those Ignite games that year, and I was like, I'm not seeing, like, he's not a perfect prospect, but I'm not seeing all the issues of why this kid falls all the way into the second round.
I had him as a top 20 guy. I felt that way. I thought that he should have been taken there. Do you know what Jaden Hardy did last season in 11 games in the G League, Bryce? Have you gone back and watched that tape yet?
I haven't, no.
Jaden Hardy in 11 games averaged 28.8 points per game on 55, 49, 86 shooting. He was like unstoppable in the G League last year. And he was good in the NBA minutes too. Like, I don't want to, reduce that. Like he averaged like 9 points a game and shot 44, 40, 82. For a rookie, that's like great numbers. Like I think Hardy is really, really talented and has a shot to be like the perfect sixth man behind Kyrie and Luka. And oh, by the way, like another guy that is willing to push tempo and play with Kyrie as well. I love what they've done. Like I love everything they did this offseason. And I think that the Mavericks are in a really positive position now, as long as they get the center production that they need. You know, the name that I've seen pop up occasionally is Clint Capella, right? Like Clint Capella would make a lot of sense for them, I think, at center.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, like, but I also really like the idea of them keeping Maxey, which means that it's hard to do like you could do like a Rashawn Holmes or no, it'd have to be probably Tim Hardaway, I guess, because I don't know if you can combine Rashawn with people right now. But if you could do like a Clint Capella, there's less synergy, I think, between Clint Capella and the Dallas Mavericks. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, I think they had a fun offseason. I'm with you. I thought they had a great draft. I mean, they moved back. I don't know if somebody was mocked more to player team. Was there a player team mocked more than those two, than Lively and the Mavericks? I don't think so. And then they moved back and still got him. And then they used that to get another draft pick, which turned into Omax. And so I thought they navigated the draft really well. I think Grant Williams I think he's a very good player. Maybe I'm proven to be wrong on that. And they seem to have an extremely deep team that helps you win games in the regular season. And I mean, at the end of the day, it comes down to the two dudes being dudes, right? Like those two. Luka has to take defense serious. Kyrie has to be as about basketball as Kyrie can be about basketball. But it's a deep West, but I think they're a team that has a real chance if things come together the right way.
Yeah, and the other piece of this just to loop the Clint Capella thing. Yeah, you could do Tim Hardaway Jr. for Clint Capella straight up. I'm not totally sure why Atlanta would do that, frankly, unless they are just like purely in cost cutting mode, because that would save them like $3 million to do that. But yeah, to me, I would rather do something like, I would love to find a way to do Clint Capella to Dallas is maybe the way to put it. It'd probably have to be a 3-team deal where like a backup center goes to Atlanta and they get to start a Kongwu and everything like that. And probably has to be a center with like real size, but regardless, the Mavericks are a fascinating spot and I'm interested to see what they do. The other thing is that like, you don't have to make this decision. Like you can mix and match based on the team in front of you.
Yep.
And that's, I think, what is most important about what Dallas did this offseason is they got options based on what is in front of you. You can throw, if you need a bigger wing, you can throw Omax out there. If you need somebody that can stop point of attack, you can throw Josh out there. If you need, more scoring, you can throw Jaden Hardy out there. If you need a bigger lineup, you can go like Maxey, Grant Williams, and a center. Or you can go smaller and you go Maxey at the 5 with Grant Williams guarding centers, right? The lineup flexibility and versatility that Dallas got this season is what I think has been most impressive about their offseason. And now it's on Jason Kidd. And I have as many questions about Jason Kidd as a coach as I think everybody else does. It's up to him to mix and match and push the right buttons at the right time.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to talk about lineup versatility as fan bases. And then you like realize you have to trust your coach to figure that out every single night. And some coaches are really good at it. And as quote unquote easy as it seems to be, not all of them get it. All coaches, every coach has strengths and weaknesses. Some are more drastic. And, it'll be a year. We'll find out how good is Jason Kidd at putting the right lineups on the floor at the right times against the right teams in the regular season, Sam, but then especially come playoff team. Can he find the right keys to unlock the matchups when they're in a 7-game series against the Los Angeles Lakers or the Golden State Warriors? Or if they go deep in the playoffs, can he adjust that every round? Because I think that's what's fun, Sam, is watching coaches make those tough decisions on, okay, so-and-so just played great last series, but now we have to set him down because the matchup dictates that we put this guy on the floor. So it'll he has the pieces now. That's all you can ask for as an organization. And now he has to put them in the right spots.
Okay. Let's go to the NBL Blitz.
Yep.
Bryce, I'm just going to give you the floor on Alex Sarr because I know that Alex Sarr is one of your favorites. And I also love Alex Sarr. I would have Alex Sarr as a top 3 guy right now on my board. I'm like totally with you on Sarr. But I will give you the floor on Alex Sarr. Explain to me why Alex Sarr has become one of your favorite prospects in this 2023 or 2024, I apologize, NBA draft.
So I was feeling very self-conscious when I first turned on the Alex Sarr film, Sam, because I'm watching Sarr and I'm like, man, this dude isn't not this NBL Blitz film from the like before all of this. And I'm texting everybody I know, Alex Sarr, what do you think? Alex Sarr, what? And some people don't even have him in the first round. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, am I just an idiot as an evaluator? And then I feel a little bit justified after the Ignite games where he looked really good. And then these NBL Blitz games where he's looked really good. I told you this the other day. Every time the film comes on, I'm just like, this dude is massive. He is long, but he moves so well, Sam. He moves extremely well. I think the jumper looks okay. It's got to come around more. I'm not saying it's a finished product by any means, but I've seen him knock down some pick and pops where I'm like, that was smooth. The footwork looked good. He looked confident. I like it. I've seen him go off the bounce for 1-2 dribbles, spin back over, his right shoulder fadeaway, and it looked smooth. It looked good. I do, like, as I watch him more, I start to critique him more, Sam. So I'd like to get your perspective on this. I would like to see a little bit more finishing in the lane, like a little bit more offensive rebound, putback, pick and roll lob threat, rim run, get out in transition and beat everybody down the floor. I don't want him to turn into too much of a perimeter player. I love the DHO stuff. I love him showcasing the passing, but I want to see a little bit more of that. And then I know you love him on this end of the floor too, but defensively, he does a lot of really good things as well.
Alex Sarr is a joke defensively. Like, he is so advanced for a teenager playing in a professional league. The way he covers ground defensively is absolutely remarkable. His instincts to rotate across in scramble situations, I think, are phenomenal. He is so consistently available to his teammates. And then on top of it, he has that like ticking clock in his brain where he understands when the shot clock is going down and down. And when to blitz guys, right? And just use his length and athleticism to throw them off. I thought that was really, really fun and impressive. He did it a couple times at the NBL Blitz where I was like, oh yeah, like this guy just like has a real feel for the game and an innate understanding of the moment that he's on the court and situational awareness of being on the court in those situations.
Well, what you're starting. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
I was going to say real quick, what you're starting to see is offensive players being aware of him. And that's not something that shows up in the stat sheet, but you can see guys rushing shots or not taking shots. So there was an example in the Perth Adelaide game. His hard hedges a ball screen. So he hard hedges Sam, which means he steps out. Go ahead.
Not his fault. I want to be clear. I would like to see him hard hedge a bit less.
Sure.
Because I think it takes him a bit out of help position more often. But John really is a really good coach. I don't want to, disparage John. I think he does a really good job. But yeah, I would like to see those hedges maybe a little bit less pronounced.
Sure. I don't mind it as much because I like to see the versatility, but I know what you're saying in terms of you getting him away from the basket. But that's what makes this play so impressive is he hard hedges. They throw a lob and the offensive big rolling to the basket tries to like catch and quick finish because he knows Sarr is tracking him from behind from a hard hedge outside the 3-point line. And he's so nervous that he misses the layup and blows it because he knows Sarr can cover ground. Like that's just the things that show up when you watch the game that you're like, he's making an impact even beyond the how many ever blocks he averaged in the NBL Blitz.
Yeah. He's not a guy where the numbers are always going to pop. It's the tape that pops. It's the amount of ground, like you said, like that goes to my point of ground coverage, right? Hard hedging, then flying back to rotate, recover, contest, right? rim protection wise, I think his instincts rotationally on the backside are pretty good. I think he knows where to be. I think he knows how he has to get there. I think he is active and aggressive. Rebounding wise, I think he does a pretty good job out of his area. I almost like him more out of his area than like in his area.
Agreed.
Sometimes.
Yes. Yep.
Mostly because of like the anchoring issue. Like he's just not strong enough yet right now. Physically, I will say Alex Sarr will put on weight and it's not going to be an issue.
Yeah.
Like truly. Physically, he's going to have no problem adding 15, 20 more pounds, I don't think. The shoulders are like broad and strong. Has like a bit of a thin waist right now. And it looks like his lower half is going to be able to like handle more weight that will allow him to anchor more on the interior and box out and hold his position. And when he goes up and contests, when guys go into his body, they will bounce off of him as opposed to like him bending down and then like the arms coming down and it being a foul, right? Physically, he's going to grow and mature, and you can see what he's going to be very easily. I think it's an easy evaluation in that regard. Offensively, I like the ability to grab and go. I like the ability to, he started his like almost, it's not his default, but like the thing that impresses me most maybe is he will catch at the top and get involved in a dribble handoff with someone like Bryce Cotton or one of those guards. And he'll reject the DHO and then just turn and fire as a shooter. That's like a hard skill for a guy that's that young and that like has that big of hands. His hands are really big. That has like that high of a center of gravity as well. That is a difficult shot, and he's capable of doing it. Just in terms of balance, the shooting, I think he very clearly has touch.
Yep.
I think there's just a lot going on. And I think that as he works to simplify like his movements, it will be a little bit easier for him to be consistent as a shooter. Like he has a bit of like upward, like backward movement toward his face, just a little bit.
Yep.
And he has like kind of like this weird, like he like brings the ball up, like his wrist is like almost locked the whole time. It feels like as he's shooting, like he brings it up and then he like brings it back real quick and unlocks it and then goes. Like it feels like he brings it up locked and then brings it back and then goes with the shot. So it's going to take, I think his consistency could be ironed out. Maybe is a fair way to put it. Balance wise, like I think that like sometimes it seems like his core is kind of going all over the place. But to me, like, you know, someone in the comments asked, is Sarr going to be more of a perimeter oriented and help defender or more of a defensive anchor and paint player? It's a great question. I think it's going to be like a Jaren Jackson style, like perimeter oriented help defender. More than anything.
It's funny. I had 3 questions and we won't get to all of them, but I had 3 questions for you, Sam. And that was legitimately one of mine. What is the defensive role? Is he a 5-man defensive anchor or roaming off the ball? So this was something exactly that I was curious. I see that as well. I see more of like this roamer, cover ground, all the stuff you've outlined. The other question that I thought was interesting, what is the offensive role, Sam? And we've talked about this, you know, just over.
I've had this conversation with a lot of NBA people.
And how far away is it, Sam? How far? Because I think there's a little bit of, I don't even know if coordination is the right word, but it seems a little bit loose at times. And he doesn't always have control of his limbs completely. Balance is probably the better word. Core strength. I think he's a little closer than I think what a lot of NBA people think. I think I'm a little higher on how close he is.
I think that these would not be questions if we weren't talking about him as like a top, potentially number 1 pick or like top 3 pick.
Yes.
I think if we're talking about him like, you know, 7, 8, 9, which like in a normal draft, like last year's draft, like I think he probably goes 7, 8 or 9.
Yep.
Probably like 9, to be honest, as of right now, with what I've seen, at least. These evaluations are fluid. It's very early in the season.
I was just thinking through the draft picks, like who was at 9. I think I had a pretty solid top 9. I think he probably would have ended up in it, but yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Sarr, So much of it depends on how the frame develops. If he can be a 5, like if he can play the 5 and anchor and be strong and physical, these questions take care of themselves, and he can be like a marginal advantage player in that respect. If he can even be a closing 5, like a Bam Adebayo or something, and I don't think he's Bam. I want to be clear about that. Like Bam's center of gravity is a little bit lower. He moves better on the perimeter than Alex Sarr does, always has. He is just stronger. Like he's 250 pounds, whereas Alex's body is a little bit more elongated. It's not quite as physical, but Alex is longer. Like, and he's, able to protect the rim at a stronger level than Bam is realistically a lot of the time. But if he can get that strength and that power to his game, I think that there is a lot of potential upside for him to play as a 5. And if he's a 5, these questions answer themselves, and it's like not a problem.
Yep.
If he's a 4, he's going to have to shoot. Like he's just going to have to shoot and grab and go on the break and do some of the other stuff he can. But if he's a 4, he's going to have to shoot it. And I think he will. The question is at what volume? I don't have an answer on that yet.
Yeah. No, I agree.
What do you think the role is?
I think he's going to end up being more perimeter oriented offensively. Like I think as I watch every game, I get the vibe more and more he wants to be a 4, or that's the way he's playing right now, or however you want to say it is. It seems like every game he almost like drifts further away from the rim. And that's why in the notes on this very last game I watched, I said, man, I love seeing this stuff, but I really would like to. I think I even put in there like Trentyn Flowers was guarding him, I believe, in that game. And I just wanted to see him go, nothing against Trentyn Flowers, so nobody take this the wrong way. But I'm like, I just wanted to see him go.
About Trentyn.
Yeah, I just wanted to go see him bury somebody smaller than him on the block. Like just go post him up, catch it, turn and jump hook or whatever.
That's where the high center of gravity, I think, comes in. I don't really see him ever as like a post threat.
Sure.
But in the NBA, that's okay. Like at FIBA level, it would be a problem.
Yeah.
But in the NBA, it's not really a problem because he's going to be a rim runner. And that's where I hope, that's what I would like to see him improve at this year. I would like to see him be in the minutes where Keanu Pinder is not on the court. And I would imagine they're going to Perth will probably try and have one of Pinder or Sarr on the court at all times. In the minutes without Pinder, I would like to see him be like a rim runner more often. Attack the basket and go. Maybe even like you short roll and catch and you put the ball on the deck once and go. I think he can do that. His finishing touch around the basket is something I want to learn a little bit more about. I think that's a real question, maybe is the way to put it for me. Not like, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's good. I want to learn more about how strong he is as a finisher at the basket. But to me, in this class where this is not a strong class, is at the top. Bryce and I have talked about this ad nauseum. I think at this point, this is not a great class at the top of the draft. I see him as a top 3 pick right now. And I think Alex Sarr is a genuine contender to go number 1 overall in this draft. If the offense improves like in a real way, and he is efficient as a scorer on the interior and knocks down threes, depending on who gets that number 1 overall pick, they could really, I think, sell themselves on Alex Sarr being the best long-term asset in this draft. And again, at some point on this channel on YouTube, I'm going to do like a deep dive into the Ignite tape more than anything. But having seen him in person now, he's a really, really special athlete for how big he is. His fluidity, his ground coverage, it's a different deal.
Yeah, I'm with you. I turned the film on. I loved it when I did that. Every game I've watched so far, I felt the same way. I thought, like, again, I'm interested to see how I feel over the next 5 games I watch of him, because I can already feel myself now really watching the details and the places I can pick him apart, not in a negative way, but in hey, if I'm going to go on Game Theory podcast and say that I think you might be the number one pick, I better know what your flaws are too, and speak about those as well. So
it's the offensive role. What is the offensive role is the big question for him right now.
Yeah, but I told you this. I wish I would have had the guts to say it my very first time with you. I think I asked you the question about a potential number one pick, and in my head I was going, just say Alex Sarr, and I chickened out, and now everybody's on it, and rightfully so, because he's been really impressive with the data we have.
Okay, next up is Bobi Klintman. What did you think of Bobi's 3 games in the at the Gold Coast? I thought they were up and down. There were some inconsistencies, maybe is the way to put it.
Yeah,
but mostly positive is what I would say.
I'll go with that. Listen, Bobi, is it Bobi or Bobi? Because I hear some people call him Bobi.
It's Bobi.
Okay, yeah. That's what I thought. So I've watched Bobi Klintman all of last year for some other stuff I do. So very familiar with his game. And, he had a great end to a season at Wake Forest. Just real quick for anybody who doesn't know, final 11 games, he shot 41% from 3 on 4 attempts. First 22 games, 31% on 1.5 attempts. So had a 11-game stretch where he really shot the ball, became a real NBA draft prospect, Sam. Goes over there. That's where I'm at. Like, I feel like it's a cop-out answer, but I didn't leave any of these games feeling a different way. I think if I believe anything about Bobi Klintman is he is truly an off-the-ball player. I like his cutting. I think he has an art and a knack for that. By the way, that's something Omax Prosper does really well also. I think he can be effective on the offensive boards. I don't like them putting the ball in his hand, running ball screen stuff, but I like if they just want to like a zoom action and then get him downhill off of that. Defensively, definitely a mixed bag. And
let's start on the offense first. Because
okay.
I think the offense is the most important part with Bobi.
Okay. Yep.
Offensively, I'm glad you brought up the cutting. That was something I didn't see a crazy amount of at Wake Forest last year, but I thought was exceptional at the Gold Coast. I thought he was really, really good as a cutter. And they have enough guards where they will hit him. Like Taran Armstrong will hit him as a cutter if he is open. I thought he was very reactive, especially off the baseline cuts. I thought his 45 cuts were really smart. He has a real knack for finding his area to the basket. The issue with that at times is the finishing. If he can't dunk, it's a bit of a worry with his finishing. He doesn't get, and this extends to the shooting as well, which I'll talk about momentarily. I feel like the arc on the ball in terms of overall touch when he's on the move flattens out. And that's why around the rim, you see like these little shots that will like back rim. And from 3, you'll see him really flatten out when he's trying to take a shot on the move. And that's, to me, that is the difference between him being like an NBA player and not an NBA player.
Sure.
He needs to be a real touch guy as both a finisher and as a shooter and scorer. Like, it can't be, I'm going to pop it up to the rim and like have to offensive rebound a couple of times. He has to finish. Especially if we're going to derive a lot of value from him as an off-ball player and as a cutter. I'm with you on the handle. I think that like you can run like a couple zoom actions for him. I think he can bring the ball up the court and do some stuff in grab and go situations. I actually think he can pass as well, is the thing. Like, that's actually the on-ball skill I like most. I think his vision is actually pretty good. From playing on the ball in Sweden for all those years. I think he has like an innate understanding of that. The handle in traffic, I think, is a worry, and he will need to tighten it up. The issue for me, beyond the scoring, and I said like this is mostly a positive endeavor, and I'm now like kind of questioning it a little bit. And I don't mean to, like, he was very productive and was good. I think that like I'm trying to rate him on the level of 15th overall or like second rounder, right? Sure. And that's where I think NBA teams are trying to parse through some things right now. To be the 15th overall pick, he has to have that touch level. To be if he's going to go 35th or whatever, it's going to be because of that like touch not quite being there. And the reason for that is that athletically, he's good off of 2 feet and he's good when he has like space and can load up. I don't think his athleticism is quite as good in traffic. I don't think that I don't think he has a lot of like explosiveness in traffic when I watch him. And that's again an issue when we're talking about a player that like has some touch concerns around the basket with like the shot, like the trajectory of the ball, like flattening out a little bit. And then I also don't love his hips. Like defensively, I think that he really struggles to flip his hips. And that's along with like just the inherent awareness concerns of not having played like a wildly high level in Sweden. And then, you know, this basically being like his third year playing high level basketball, like just the overall defensive awareness is not always there. He'll honestly, like he showed real growth from game 1 to game 3 defensively.
I agree. Yes.
So like the first game, I thought his first 5-minute stretch was really bad, like truly, really, really bad defensively. But, and this is where we can talk about like the really positive things with Bobi Klintman. He came out of the game. All of his teammates like came up to him and were really excited for him and loved him. I was sitting right next to the bench. So like I got like a good view of this. And then it looked like a couple of guys like came up to him and were like, they were like pointing to the court and stuff. And like, they were like trying to, I don't know what the conversations were. This is just me reading into this, right? And seeing what you see on a basketball court. It looked like they were trying to explain to him what went wrong, right? And that's the growth. That's like what you really want to see. A, he got told what was wrong. B, his older teammates really like him and want to help him with all of this. And C, he then processed all of that, took that in. And I thought even in the second half of that game was way better defensively. So I really liked that. The physical tools wise, like a bit of a higher center of gravity and hips is like a bad combo to me. And like hip concerns is like a bad combo. That's what I think like both Cairns and then his agency Excel, they're going to have to like work with his hip flexibility, in my opinion, to try and open that up and make it so that he can drop his hips when guys are attacking closeouts and guys are trying to get by him offensively. The last thing I'll note here is the shooting. When he has a standstill or when he is like in a spot up situation or when he is on the perimeter and just relocating side to side behind the 3-point line. So like someone drives opposite court and he drifts from the wing to the baseline and he's in the corner at that point and he has a chance to really set his feet and doesn't have to worry about like vertical movement. He can just be a horizontal movement guy. I think that his shot looks pretty good. And I think that the mechanics on it look quite good. He gets like a very high hop. Like he gets like almost like a crow's hop into it. And the trajectory when he engages his legs in that way is much better. When it is him on the move and having to go like front to back and like, you know, 12 feet closer to the rim, back to behind the 3-point line, or, you know, even going like 19 feet away from the rim to 21 feet away from the rim to shoot a 3. I think that's when the shot flattens out a little bit and it can be a little bit more of a tricky issue for him. And that's where his misses come, I think. So those are the areas for improvement for him. I think like opening up the hips, trying to get the most out of him defensively, and then the shot not flattening out as much.
Yeah, I don't know that I've really ever watched him and thought, man, big time movement shooter necessarily as much as just like a catch and shoot guy or, you know, subtle relocate. I call him subtle, but, you know, just a nice, easy hammer to the corner, lift to the wing, you know, maybe even can do some pick and pop stuff. I think you brought up something that was interesting, Sam. I know when I'm evaluating Bobi, it's how is he improving his draft stock? Because at least in my mind, I'm thinking this was a kid that was a top 35, 40 pick in the 2023 draft, or could have been. That may be wrong. I may be incorrect. Maybe he didn't have a promise. Maybe he wasn't going to go that high.
So I can tell you did not have a promise.
Okay.
And I think he would have gone somewhere in the top 45 if he would have, he could have gone 31, 32, 33, could have gone, 45. I think somewhere in the top half of that second round, Bobi Klintman would have been taken in 2023.
So that's
not a certainty. I'm not saying that like I've talked to a specific team that 100% would have taken him. I'm saying as somebody who had a good feel for what his draft stock was, I think that's where it would have landed.
And I was probably a little higher just on my own personal, like big board or whatever, but it's the same range. So when I'm watching him, I'm going, okay, what is he doing that's going to get him into the first round? What's going to guarantee pick 30 through 35? And so it's all the things you're talking about, the shooting and then improving the defense. One thing to note is one thing I wanted to see from early in his season last year was defensive playmaking, defensive disruption, however you want to say it, some steals, some blocks. And I think he's doing some of that. And so again, I want to give him some love, because one way you can get around maybe being a great on ball, maybe you don't have the best hips, whatever. If you can counteract that with some playmaking, you make up for getting beat with a block from behind. I'm not saying you can always do it, Sam, but I'm just saying it's one thing that can provide value. And I thought he was doing some of that. So I'm really interested to see if he can sustain it for a whole year, because that would, again, show growth and in some ways shows awareness, anticipation, understanding of the game plan, scheme, etc.
Okay. Next up, let's go to AJ Johnson next.
Okay.
This is a bit of an easier conversation, and we won't spend as long on AJ Johnson because my takeaway from the Blitz, seeing him in person, he looks so young out there. Like, I mean, he has like a baby face to begin with, and like he's just like he looks like an 18. He looks like a 16-year-old out there, if we're being honest. But like, I know he's 18. He's so young and so like physically not yet developed. He is like purely I don't know what the fuck to do with him if I have to put together a board right now. But like as an evaluator where I have to eventually build toward the 2024 draft, he's just like purely let's check in with him in November, December, and then going into March and February guy, because it was so abundantly clear, especially in those first two games, he was just adjusting to the level of athleticism, the spacing, the level of physicality, and just like being thinner and not as strong as everybody out there. And like, frankly, like there were times where like he looked kind of winded, like after a few minutes, like it felt like he had like a lot of nervous energy, right? Because it's his first professional game and there are 50 scouts in the building. And then like after that first little minute, he was, may have, used all the energy real quick and then was like a little bit tired, which is completely understandable for an 18-year-old, right? He's just like such a check back with me later. What did you think of the third game? It was a little bit more positive. I'll say that I liked more, and I really, and after you talk, I'll bring up a couple of things that I really liked about him, even though the production was just like it wasn't there like the whole time.
Yeah, so complete transparency. I've only saw the third game of his. A lot of these other guys, I saw 2 or 3 more. I just thought he came off the bench and he was confident, man. Sam, he walks into a transition, walk up 3-pointer. Next possession, he goes to a step back, kind of in a little bit later transition. I will say this though, like I don't know how else to describe it, Sam. In my notes, I put he has like a juice to his game that stood out to me right away. Just like, I don't even know what to say. Like just the energy he played with. He has some creativity with his handle. He has some creativity with his passing. He has some real vision. Even if sometimes it's a little more flash than substance, he'll learn how to hone it in and figure it out. Like it's fine. He's an 18-year-old. Defensively, like I'm going to give him a pass for right now. Like I don't want to crush him for, I thought he tried to get up and guard. I thought he wanted, like, there were times where he got up on the ball defensively. It just isn't great yet. I don't know that he knows the nuances of what to do yet. And that's okay. But I kind of felt myself gravitating to him just because he does. He looked like a little kid. That's too far. He looked very young.
Bryce, it's kind of not. Like, truly, as somebody that was there, like, his body is just, that's where his body is right now.
And I don't want to be disrespectful. Okay.
Yeah. It's to me, it's not disrespectful. It's just the reality of he is very thin and very skinny, and he is like he just has like a baby face, and like he looks like the youngest guy on the court every time he takes the court.
But I gravitated towards watching him just because there was a certain energy that I found myself gravitating towards.
I'm with you on that entirely. I was on the broadcast for the second quarter of the Illawarra United game, and what I said was, like, as he was like struggling to go to the rim and like finish, right? I loved that there was never a point where he lost confidence.
Yep.
Like, he was getting bashed around. Like, he'd like go into guys' bodies at the rim and like he'd hit them and like fall, right? Or he'd like it was an adjustment to playing professional basketball for him, right? But there was never a point where that fear kicked in. There was never a point where like he didn't think he belonged on the court. And that's why, to me, AJ Johnson averaged 3 points in 13 minutes a game and shot 28% from the field and 17% from three and had like a 1-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. Like, you can look at the numbers and you can look at the tape and frankly come away with like poor conclusions on him if you want to.
Absolutely.
But to me, I'm going to be a lot more excited about the way that he looks in December, I think, than where I am now, because I think that he's going to adjust. And I think that it's very possible that this level, physicality wise, is just, it might have been like a thing that helps him developmentally long term, that in terms of his 2024 NBA draft stock is not the best thing for him. And he might end up being like a 2-year player in Australia. And honestly, like, I think that'd be totally fine if that's the case. Like, I wouldn't think less of it at all. Again, like, physically, he's just that skinny right now. And skill wise, he has a lot of twitch athletically. Like, his hips are extremely fluid. As soon as he puts on like weight and strength, you can see that he's going to be really good. Like, you can see that it's going to click in eventually as a scorer, and you can see some vision, like Bryce said, and you can see that it's going to be there. Like, you can absolutely see the vision for what it's going to be. It's just that Illawarra right now is a better team when he's off the court, which, like, why in the second game he had 4 fouls in like the first 8 minutes, it felt like, and he ended up not playing in the fourth quarter. And like, Illawarra, frankly, was like a better team when he was not on the court in this tournament. And again, that's okay. Like, he's so young and it's just going to take time. He's purely a check back in 2 months guy to me.
Yep. And I don't think it hurts his draft stock at all if he ends up having to be a 2-year guy. I think he comes into the 2025 cycle and people are probably going to be excited about him, and he's young enough. I don't think it matters. So, and maybe he still ends up being a 2024. Like I say, we'll check back in a few months.
Totally. Like, it's very possible that he adjusts. Like, it frankly reminds me a lot of like Terrence Ferguson adjusting to the physicality of the league. And by the late portion of the season with Adelaide, Terrence Ferguson was playable. And I think AJ Johnson has way more ball skill and potential than what Terrence Ferguson did later. So very, very gifted, just might be a minute.
Yep.
Okay. We're going to talk about Trentyn Flowers. We're going to deal with like the 4 high profile, like, younger 18-year-olds and Bobi Klintman, who's like a potential first round pick first. Trentyn Flowers, I think, had the most disastrous opening game at the Blitz I've seen a prospect have. It was, and as I say that, I want to preface it with this. Very little of what I talk about with Trentyn Flowers at the Blitz was Trentyn Flowers' fault. Trentyn Flowers went into this event as a point guard. He is not leaving this event as a point guard. And the reason for that is that he's never been a point guard. And you asked him to step into a professional setting and play point guard against dudes like Parker Jackson Cartwright and like Will McDowell White, like didn't even play in this game. God knows what would have happened in that case because Will can really fucking play. Like, you ask him to go into this playing a role that he hasn't really played at a high level previously. Ask him to play a professional basketball league, one of the better professional basketball leagues in the world, point blank, and say, hey, bring the ball up the court. Like, hey, deal with Parker Jackson Cartwright trying to come into your handle every time. Parker Jackson Cartwright ripped him like 4 times before he crossed half court in this game. And it was bad. It was really bad. He struggled defensively. They had him like guarding Justinian Jessup, like off the ball, who is an expert moving off the ball. Like they threw Trentyn to the wolves, and this was as bad of tape as you will find. The second game, they played him off the ball. It was a little bit better. There were other factors that I'm going to write about for tomorrow/Tuesday that I'll save for there. That NBA scouts did not leave with the best impression of Trentyn Flowers. I'm not going to leave it there. Trentyn Flowers' father, unfortunately, was at center courtside, and was loud. We'll go with. And I sat with like a bunch of NBA executives and scouts there, and I'm trying to be as delicate as possible, but they all noticed it. And it was something that they will note moving forward with him. I'll leave it as delicately as that. It was not the best impression, we'll say. He turned the ball over, I think 4 times in that game, shot like 4 for 13 from the field. Did not look particularly good, but looked better, I thought. Now, I'm happy to be the like negative Nancy on this. What did you think of the third game? I thought the third game was a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, I still noted I don't think he looked comfortable with the ball in his hands. I think he has to play off the ball. You know, he made some shots, Sam, is the thing. And when it goes in, and you said this, he has touch. I just can't trust it. I can't trust the cock back, super quick flick, the flat. But I kind of was intrigued with the different ways they were using him. Like he even ended up in the dunker spot at times. I think he put Sarr on a poster, actually. Like he showed off his athleticism a little bit, as I mentioned earlier.
You know what? As someone that was in person, and that was the first time I'd seen Trentyn in person, he had a lot more athletic pop than what I thought. Like, he can jump, and he can move. Like he covers ground. Athletically, there's more there than what I thought from watching the tape.
And that's going to be important if he's going to move into this off the ball role, especially if he's going to have an off the ball role as a guy who doesn't necessarily shoot it great right now, or maybe people don't trust the shot. So can he do all the things we've talked about with these other off the ball players, Sam, in terms of, can he be a great cutter? Can he run the floor? Can he offensive rebound? And how good can the defense eventually get for him? So, I mean, I think my biggest takeaway, and I think this is ultimately a positive, is the Trentyn Flowers point guard experience is over. And at the end of the day, that's a win for his eventual NBA future. Like at the end of the
Yes.
day, the sooner that happened, the better it was for him. And all I really care about is Trentyn Flowers and his getting to the NBA. And so that's the biggest win out of all of this. Like
Well,
that's a win. That's a
and I
positive.
care. Yeah, we want this to be a positive experience for Trentyn Flowers. We don't want these like kids to fail ever.
Exactly.
And he was set up to fail. And that's
Yes.
why I started this at the beginning by saying that like a lot of this was contextual. Also, 100% transparent here, right? I didn't love what Adelaide was running in those first two games. It felt like they really limited like the playbook, probably because Trentyn Flowers, the plan was to play Trentyn Flowers at point guard. Additionally, Jamal Franklin was on that team for the first two games. Jamal Franklin was not on the team for the third game. They have released him from his deal and he will be moving on. And it seems like they're going to be bringing in another import. We will see what that ends up being. Go follow Olgan Uluk for more on that, because I'm sure Olgan will get it. The third game as well. And this is why like it just made no sense to me. Mitch McCarron's really fucking good at basketball. Like, point blank, Mitch McCarron is a good basketball player. And it drives me crazy that the idea was, hey, we have Trentyn Flowers. We have this guy who's never played point guard, who's a teenager. Let's just give him the ball. No, what you do is you have Mitch McCarron play point guard. You let Trentyn be like a secondary creator, a second side operator, where like Mitch runs a ball screen, hits him on a kick out, open driving lane, go. Maybe he knocks down a shot, right? Mitch McCarron, 16 points, 10 assists, 7 rebounds in that third game. They lost by 4 to Tasmania, a very well run, like good team. Truly, like, I just really, really struggle with. I struggle with what Adelaide is doing there. It's somebody that like follows the NBL a little bit, and we'll be following it more now. Like, I got to be honest, and we'll talk about this at the end, but like I got the bug for the NBL while I was there in the Blitz. I love it now. Fascinating situation with Adelaide that I just cannot wrap my head around. Play Mitch McCarron at point guard, please. He can play. He knows how to run a team. I get that like the shooting has turned the last couple of years, but he's good defensively. He's a great like operator on the ball in terms of like a team construct. If you go get a good scoring guard next to him, this team will look a lot more competent and will make a lot more sense.
And Flowers is probably playing in that situation. He's going to look better in that situation, right? Like he's going to look better with a competent point guard that's going to hit him and, a good scoring guard to play off of. And so it'll be interesting now because it's not going to be easy if he went in with even if he hasn't always done it, if he went into this with the mindset, I'm going to play point guard. Now he's got to change his mindset into I'm playing off the ball. And so that's going to take a little bit of adjustment as well. But it's one of those players I'm really fascinated to watch because I think it'll say a lot about him if he's able to turn the corner and make the adjustment and fill this new kind of role / archetype, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, now let's get to some of the more fun names here. Ariel Hukporti is a guy that I really have liked for quite a while. I put him on the mock. I did not put Trentyn Flowers on the mock. I thought Trentyn Flowers was going to be a project. Ariel Hukporti is like as high motor, a athletic center as I've watched in a while. The dude just plays super hard. Like I was telling Bryce before we started that I was on the call for that United Illawarra game for the second quarter. And in that second quarter, Hukporti went like last man back defensively, beat everybody down the court offensively, got a transition lob and threw it down. Was the last guy back offensively at that point, sprinted back defensively, was the first guy back defensively on the court, contested a shot that ended up being kind of a foul. And then like the next possession or something like that, like on the court down, he blocks like 2 shots and like flex. Like he's a really fun player. He's going to be really good in the NBL this year. I think he's going to be really valuable. In my opinion, I think he's like the prototypical guy that you would like to see as a like 50 to 60 like stash pick. Just toolsy, athletic, has very little ball skill. Like okay touch on like his lefty hook shot, but really needs to improve the ball skill in terms of like being able to put the ball on the deck like once even. But I really like Ariel Hukporti quite a bit. You have not seen much of Hukporti though, so we don't really need to like belabor this either.
Yeah, like I said, I did not see any of their games. I've watched quite a few of these, but I kind of kept to Sarr, Armstrong, Flowers. And so I have
And
not
I
seen
made you
him.
watch Lachlan Olbrich too, who we'll get to in a minute.
Yes, I do have notes on him though.
Okay. I like Ariel
real quick,
Hukporti.
this
I
is
think
who I
he's a
wanted to
draft
ask about.
pick, is my point.
James Najee. Compare him to James Najee.
James is more athletic than he is.
Way more
James
athletic.
Is, yeah.
Similar,
like James is a joke.
Similar offensive skill set though. Like because Najee wasn't super skillsy offensively.
James's ability to pop off the ground athletically, I think makes him a better potential rim runner than what Hukporti is. His length, I think, also covers a little bit more space in pick and roll coverages, but Ariel is getting a lot better in pick and roll coverages too. Okay. I think that Najee is a better prospect than Hukporti.
I thought Najee was really good in drop.
Yeah, it's just like the next level down from Najee, I would say.
Okay.
Let's talk about Lachlan Olbrich. Lachlan Olbrich is the breakout player of the NBL Blitz, like by far. He had 18 points in the third game and went like 8 for 8 shooting, had, I think, 5 assists, 6 rebounds, 3 steals. In the game before that, he had 20 points with like a couple of rebounds, a couple assists, like a steal. The efficiency, the creativity. He's this big 6'10" kid who has both college pedigree and now like potential to produce in the NBL. He was the Big West Freshman of the Year last season at UC Riverside, where he was really impactful and awesome as like a big who could finish around the basket and had a lot of skill level. Decided to go pro and got signed by Illawarra. I think he signed like a 3-year deal. He's still 19 years old and did this at this production level in the NBL. I'm not over exaggerating when I say that, like, look, I probably won't mock him there right now. The ceiling is like first round pick for Lachlan Olbrich. Like if he's as good as he was in these first 2 games and he shows he can shoot, which by the way, in the NBL 1 competition this year, he took 78 threes and made them at a 43% clip.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So has real touch, can shoot. Also, you watch him, like he very clearly has touch.
Yes.
Like
absolutely.
In skill level and every single thing he does. I'm telling you, like you cannot rule out first round for Lachlan Olbrich right now. Like, and I get that he's not the traditional big man who is, rim runner and rim protector and this and that and the other thing.
He's not uber athletic, right? Like he just, it's not crazy bouncy, but
yeah, it's coordinated athleticism. It's unbelievable hands. It's hand-eye coordination,
craftiness, processing.
Yep. He was the guy that like popped for me in a way that I did not anticipate. Bryce, what did you think watching on tape?
Yeah, he's fun because he just gets stuff done in a different way.
I don't like where you're going with when you say fun. Oh no.
Why is fun a negative? No, it's fun.
Fun is what you say when you're like, oh no, like, he's great to watch. I enjoy watching him.
No, I have one question I'm going to ask at the end of it, but it's fun because I was going to say he protects the rim with straight verticality. It's not these highlight level blocks. He sees rotations early. He's aware, and then he just gets straight up vertical, and you're going to have to score over him if you're going to score. He has real movement. He has skill. He can grab and go, hit a dude with a backdoor pass. Really, really good mover without the ball. I think that's an underrated skill for big guys is where do I run in transition? How do I relocate along the baseline or into the middle of the lane? He had a really nice slip of a screen. Like, again, so I have two questions. One, is he 6'10"? My impression watching on film was that he wasn't 6'10", but sometimes that can be, deceiving.
It's a fair question.
Because if he's only 6'8", this
saying.
changes things for me.
I don't think he's 6'8". I will say that. He's definitely not 6'8". He might be like 6'9", 6'9 and a half.
Okay.
But he's definitely not 6'8".
Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't want it to be
like 6'10" is plausible to me. Like if you told me he's 6'10", it's not impossible.
I didn't want to be.
I don't know. I'm fucking 5'9", Bryce. Like I look up at all these dudes.
You guys start bringing me with you. I'm 6'6", and so we'll be able to get a good idea of how tall everybody is.
I need a tape measure, Bryce.
I just didn't want him to be 6'10", and then we get to the combine and he's 6'7.5", and it's like, okay, well, this is a little.
No, he's not that. Yeah, he's not that.
Okay, so here's my bigger question. How much do you ever worry about the translation for guys who do things the way he does things with the craft, the intangibles, do you have any worries about him not being super athletic and getting things done the way he gets done?
Absolutely. In the NBA, like 100% in the NBA. It might not work. Like point blank, it might not work. But if he can shoot, it will work. And I think he can shoot.
The one game I watched, I don't think he took one. And so that's
he only took 2 throughout the competition.
Okay, so that makes him way more interesting to me. The number you threw out, maybe the most interesting thing we've talked about on this is if that dude shoots 38 to 40% from 3, I mean, I'm all in. I'm on the bandwagon going to where you're talking about now.
Yeah. Again, I think he made like 34 of 78, something like that.
Yeah,
like
not
40.
Not a crazy
not
sample,
a big sample.
But still.
Yeah. And he can handle. And like you said, his feel for the game is fucking outstanding.
Yes.
And like he can grab and go. He can run like high post shit as well. He can reject dribble handoffs and drive. He can reject and turn, I would bet, and shoot. Like just given that he shot 43% from 3, I'm guessing that's the case. I think there's like a real chance that like he is Illawarra's best prospect like for 2024. AJ Johnson long term athletically is like just more I understand that ceiling, and again I want to check back with AJ moving forward. It is not out of the realm of possibility that Lachie Olbrich is the guy who gets drafted highest on Illawarra this year.
Oh yeah, I can see that 100%.
He is so skilled and gifted, and it's like so reductive, but like his ability to get into the danger areas of the court, right? Like he understands how to utilize space so well and how to like cover space so well. His super high IQ, like his, like it's like proprioception where like, where like all of your limbs are at all times, right? His proprioception is like unbelievable, and he can, again, the hand-eye coordination is phenomenal. He can really, really pass it like on the move. Like there was one where he like caught a ball, heavy closeout, he drove it, kick out like underneath with the left hand to Hyunjin Lee, like right on the wing, and it's just like, whoa.
Yep, I know exactly the play you're talking about.
Like if he can pass and he can dribble and he can shoot and he's 6'9.5" to 6'10.5", like whatever the hell he is, that's a great skill set to have. That's truly like a great skill set to have. I'm telling you, like, I don't know where it's going to settle with him. It's 2 preseason games, right? But the first round is not out of the question here with Lachie Olbrich, despite the fact that like he came into this thing, NBA scouts like they knew who he was, I would say, but there was no He was not heralded. He was not like, it was just like, oh yeah, like his agent like asked me to check him out and like give me a take kind of thing from scouts, right? He's good. He's really good.
Yeah, I think he's a good team defender as well. Like the awareness, the all of that stuff, the verticality is going to make him a good team defender. He may get worked in some one-on-one matchups at times, but
in the NBA particularly.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I'm sorry, in the NBA, but I'll take team defenders. I like those guys.
Yep. Taran Armstrong. Speaking of good at basketball, Taran Armstrong's awesome. Taran Armstrong has been one of my favorites for a couple years now. What did you think for Cairns?
I want to ask this. Taran Armstrong is top what processor in the 2024 NBA draft class?
Number
right
one.
Now?
Number one.
Number one. You have nobody else.
No. He's in processing and like passing. No. Taran Armstrong is probably one of the 15 best like processors and passers on planet Earth right now. And if you think that's an exaggeration, watch him pass. His issues are not that. His issues are he's not a great athlete. The shooting is a real question, and we'll see where it all lands as he gets older and matures. Purely passing, processing, everything that goes into that. I mean, look, I've talked to the kid. Like, he's one of the smartest. Like, I talked to him when he was a teenager still, when he was 19. He is, I think, the smartest like processor I've talked to among prospects. And I've talked to a lot of them over the years. He's on a different plane in terms of like when he was a teenager, reading like the second and third level of the defense, not even looking at the man in front of him, like just understanding how to make all of those plays. He is a different dude in that respect.
So in this, I believe it was the third game, in the first 2.5 minutes, Sam, he throws a lob pass. He throws a right hand out of the baseline, out of bounds pass. He throws a left hand hook pass out of the ball screen. Later in the game, he throws the behind the back bounce pass to a pick and pop. And then the most impressive one, he goes hezzy, crossover, creates a driving lane, reads the backside hammer where the defense takes it away, and then just flips it to the cutter from the wing on the weak side instead for a dunk. He is a big time processor. I think he gets after it defensively. He completely disrupted the first possession of the game in that game. Here's my biggest question. I can live with a guy who doesn't shoot it well right now. I want to be very, very clear. As I watch these guys more, I start to find more things to just say, hey, what is this? I think he has touch, so I believe in his floater game. I have some questions about his finishing around the rim also.
Yeah, I do too.
That starts to...
I don't know how he scores right now in the NBA.
That's the thing. It's not just a shooting thing, Sam. It's an all-around scoring thing.
Correct.
And that's where I'm starting to get just a little bit more nervous. He's got to be able to score. You got to give me scoring at one level at least, Sam. You got to be able to score at one level.
Yeah.
And maybe it is the floater. Maybe he just lives and dies with floaters in the mid, something like that. But you got to give me scoring from one level.
Yeah. But on an NBA standard right now, he doesn't have it. He can't score on an NBA standard from any level.
I agree.
I will say this about Taran. Physically, he was always very skinny when you watched him at Cal Baptist. He was always very thin, and it felt like he struggled to maintain his like spot on the court, to anchor down, to have both feet on the ground, everything like that. He is way stronger now. Like he is way stronger through his upper half, his chest, his shoulders, like even like his back. Like he looked bigger.
Yeah.
Like he looked way, 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 way bigger than what I'd seen previously from him. And that's huge for him because he didn't lose any of the any of the like coordination, athleticism stuff. Like he didn't get any slower by building up that frame. Defensively, it also really helped. The first game, he ended up having to chase around Bryce Cotton a lot, and Bryce Cotton's the best scorer in the NBL.
Yeah, he's good.
In like an NBA caliber scorer. Like the rest of it, like Bryce defensively and things like that, like that's why he's not in the NBA. But like as a scorer, he's an NBA caliber scorer. He did a great job chasing around Bryce in that game. Bryce is really good, and he chased him around and made life absolutely hard for him. Yeah, like defensively, passing, I buy it at this point. Yep. He's 6'5", and you can see where this is going, but he needs to be able to score. If it was me, I would take a flyer on Taran somewhere in like the back 15 of the second round and see what happens. Like I'm like someone in the comments brought up like London Johnson. Like I would rather take a shot on Taran Armstrong than London Johnson, because I think that Taran's innate elite skill as a passer and playmaker, I think the odds are that, like, frankly, they might not be NBA players, like either of them. But if you're trying to project forward on what they can be, I think Taran improving the shooting and getting to the point where he can knock down shots changes his game more fundamentally than London changing anything else within his game.
Yeah, I think right now, if I had to pick between the two, with the data we have, I would just think there's a better chance right now that Taran becomes an NBA player, like as somebody that you can put on an NBA floor eventually over London Johnson right now.
He's truly just like elite of the elite of the elite as a passer and processor. Like that covers up for a lot. It really does, but he has to be able to score in some way. If he can score in some way, if he can, it's probably going to have to be the shot, to be honest. If he can shoot, it's a lot more interesting. Okay.
By the way, I would love if they could put Taran Armstrong on the G League Ignite and just let him create for all those dudes. Do you know how much better all of those guys would be on the Ignite if Armstrong was just racking up 15 assists a night?
I know, it'd be so great, wouldn't it? Let's see here. Going through my list. Ben Henshall, what'd you think of Ben Henshall?
I thought I had one game.
Perth, like small, like 6'5",
yeah.
skinny.
Okay, yeah. So I got a couple games. So had some defensive disruption in playmaking. Thought he had some real juice with the ball in his hands. Like, sorry to curse, but like I think he truly played with some shit to his game. And then
he has that.
Yeah. So rough finishing around the rim, but then this kid hits a huge isolation 3 with like a minute to go in this close game. I'm like, okay, like I guess we're just gonna, stand up in the biggest moment. So I think he really has effort defensively, goes after offensive boards. Again, I thought he struggled to finish around the rim a little bit, but he's got some stuff to his game, some confidence, obviously. So I'm intrigued. He's another guy, like, it's a name I didn't know going into this, Sam, that now I have on my radar. So when when I'm watching, he's in my notes to keep notes on now, where, before I'm only focused on this guy or that guy. He's a guy I'm going to want to take notes on every time I watch.
Yeah. Ben is a guy that I think is probably more of a 2025 physically, as opposed to like a 2024, but I think he's like a real potential draft pick down the road. Has a lot more creativity to his game than what I thought. Like he's a real scorer with the ball in his hands. Like he has a good mid-range pull-up game. I think he will have range out to the 3-point line. And like you said, like as a driver, that dude is confident as hell. Like does not care about the physicality, has some creative like angle finishes as well that I thought were really interesting. Really, really liked everything I saw from Ben Henshall. I don't know if I'd mock him like for 2024 right now.
Sure.
But not impossible he gets there, I would say. Like very, very plausible.
What a crop of talent for the NBL right now, Sam.
Truly, there is. And I want to do that as like a wrap up at the end. One guy I want to note real quick, Josh Bannan. Josh Bannan played the first game, had like 6 points, 10 rebounds in like 16 minutes or something like that. Then I think he hurt it was like a lower leg injury, they're calling it. he's this really unique player, as I kind of mentioned at the top of the show, like has a weird looking shot mechanically, but has real touch, can really handle at 6'10", can really pass, can really play make, creative mindset, like throws these like left-handed whip passes like out of the post. Montana, like he played for last year and was like first team all Big Sky. Really, really fun to watch them. I absolutely loved it. He's a really fun player, and I think he'll start for Brisbane this year, and he is draft eligible. He will turn, I think, 23 before the draft, so it's a little bit older, maybe back 15 picks again if he really breaks out and has a great season. My guess is that he's probably more of an undrafted guy, but I would expect to see him at Summer League, and like there's not an impossibility that he could work his way into a two-way.
Yeah, I just pulled up his Montana stats, man. He's got some interesting stat profile from, just from last year. Averaged 15 points a game. He shot 40% from three on low volume. High 70s free throw percent shooter, rebounds. The passing averaged 3.6 assists at 6'10". So not a guy I'm familiar with his actual film yet, but again, like we just can keep continuing to add guys in this league that it's, hey, keep an eye on. Where like last year's like, hey, watch Ryan Repair, and then now this year it's, you can turn on any game, any night for the NBL, and there are dudes. More than one, along with the other guys that are just really good NBL players that make the game a little bit better to watch. That's where I had some fun, was getting to know those guys as well.
Yep. Alex Toohey as well is another name worth knowing.
Him pop up on Twitter. Yeah.
Yep. Gonzaga, commit originally, who decided to not do that and instead will be in the Next Stars program. I again see him more as like a 2025 guy, frankly, just physically. 6'8", 6'11" wingspan, like a 9-foot standing reach, actually, that is quite big. I see him more as like a 4. I know that like the idea there is like he can be like this 3 that can, defend on that end. At least NBA wise, I don't see that. I do think that he can be a draft pick at some point. Very interesting player for sure. The shooting is awesome, has really good feel for the game. I don't love his athleticism and hips. I think he really needs to like open up his hips and like work through his flexibility before I like really think about him as an NBA player. Because right now he's just kind of in between that like tweener zone to me.
Yeah, that's I haven't watched much of him, but I saw his name really popping up with people on, like say, Twitter and other draft podcasts. So
yeah, legitimate draft prospect for sure. Down the road, though, is more my take on it. Probably a 2-year guy. The other guy that is definitely a 2-year guy is Rocco Zikarsky, 7'3", big man for Brisbane, just turned 17 years old. He's not eligible until the 2025 NBA draft, actually. Look, it's going to take Rocco some time. I don't really even know that it's worth like talking much about his tape that he showcased here, but Rocco, you're 7'3", you can handle it a little bit. Like he's skilled for being that big, and he has real touch for being that big too. So when you combine like those 3 things, he will enter 2025 as a projected first round pick, would be my bet.
Love it. No, that would be, I say, it's full of guys, man.
Last guy. Did I make you take notes on Jaylin Galloway? I can't remember.
You didn't? No. So I don't have anything.
So Jaylin Galloway is not draft eligible. Jaylin Galloway is this 6'6" wing who is super athletic, who's still only 20 years old, but was actually in last year's draft, I think, by virtue of like his pathway, where like he was in high school in Atlanta for a little while, then like went to the Center of Excellence and has now been through Sydney's like system for a little while. He's still only 20 years old. I think that at the end of the NBL season, my guess is that somebody should 2-way him. He's a legitimate NBA athlete on the wing at 6'6" and has a chance to shoot it. Like that's kind of the ball game. If you can do that, his balance is a little bit off on the shot. Like he needs to fix some things with it, but he plays hard defensively. He's aggressive. He's energetic. He had 16 points, I think, in their first game. against Southeast Melbourne, if I remember correctly. I would advocate, I think, if the season goes as well as I think it's going to, where he's like fifth starter, sixth man for a good NBL team this year, I think there's a real shot he'll get two-wayed at the end of the year. And I think somebody like really strongly should consider it at the end of the year.
Yeah, I mean, he had 18 points in that first game against Southeast Melbourne, averaged 5 rebounds a game. So,
yeah, you should watch him at some point. He's intriguing, in my opinion. Okay. The last overarching point here I want to make about the NBL Blitz and about the NBL. This league is getting better. This league is awesome. Like, I truly like the NBL Blitz has like made me really like being there and being around all the teams, being around like the entirety of the league and getting to know a lot of these people. It really has made me fall in love with the NBL in like a real way. And I think it's a credit to the NBL putting on an awesome event with the Blitz. I think it's a credit to NBA teams like sending personnel out and being willing to like scout these guys. It's a credit to folks like Liam Santa Maria, the GM of the Next Stars program, going out and signing like 8 Next Stars that in some respect are all intriguing, even if, you know, we might be higher or lower on some of them comparatively, right? It's a credit to these general managers across the league who did a really, really smart thing by going out and getting some of the guys like your Taran Armstrongs, Josh Bannans, Lachie Olbrichs that really have lifted the level of the league in terms of talent depth as well. There are all these older veteran Australian players that are really good. There are also a ton of these younger guys that are really good. And it's only getting stronger across the Australian basketball ecosystem. I love the league. I truly do. And I would just really, really encourage and implore everybody to watch it. It's becoming like these games are better to watch than G League games. They are higher level. There's real continuity there. I get that like some of the prospects are not quite as good as watching like a team with Ron Holland and Modis and Tyler Smith, who also looks really good, and everybody like that, right? Almanza, yep. I get it. But these games are awesome, and this league is awesome. It's this league is only going to get better and better and stronger, and I'm really excited for where it's going.
I'll say, I think I watched like 7 or 8 full games in preparation for this and to watch these guys. None of it did I walk away just like, oh, I have to watch this game and I just got to drag through it because I have to watch Alex Sarr play. You know what I mean? Like I'm not going to say them. There are college basketball games where that is a thing.
All the time.
Yep. There's certain leagues in college basketball. I'm like, man, I don't really enjoy watching these, but I'm going to watch because this is my guy.
The SEC last year.
There are these other leagues. Listen, the OTE was great. It worked for a Sarr and a Min. I didn't always love having to turn on that tape, if I'm being completely honest. Like sometimes,
frankly, like scouts don't either.
Yeah,
like truly.
And so, point being, credit to the NBL because just as a fan of basketball, I enjoyed it, and especially this time, I don't have any other basketball to watch anyway, and so, but I'm walking away going, like, I have the NBL app downloaded on my phone, and I'm walking away going, okay, how am I going to watch these games? Because these were all live on YouTube. I didn't watch them live because of the time, but I was able to watch them on YouTube. How am I going to watch all these games during the season? I want to keep up. And it actually drew me in a little bit of, I want to keep up with who are the best teams, who's winning this, not just the players, but I got a little more invested. And that just speaks to the product that was on the floor, even beyond NBA draft prospects.
Yeah, I totally agree. Bryce, we have some news to share with people. You might be wondering why Bryce is here, right?
Yes.
So Bryce is here because, as some people may have seen online, Adam and his wife Kayla had a child over the weekend. So shout out to Meredith Spinella, who is Adam's little baby girl who got born, good God, got born, I believe yesterday. The days are always funky with me in Australia, so I'm not going to pretend to know for sure. But shout out to Adam. Adam is typically here on the Sunday show, but Bryce is here. And that's why. It's because Adam had a child over the weekend. So everybody who's a fan of the show, go congratulate Adam.
Yes.
He's the best. And that's all we got here.
Yep. Shout out Adam. That's I've been waiting for that news. Super excited. Their first baby, and there's nothing quite like it. We've been having some dad conversations about the first one and all of that. And like I said, so he won't be sleeping much for a little while, but you wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. So shout out Adam and his wife and his new baby.
Yeah. Shout out Adam. Shout out Kayla. Shout out everybody over there. If you listen to the show via audio, this will be broken up into 2 episodes because goodness, we went too long. If you listen on video, great. I will have Jacob cut up clips of all the prospects of everybody we talked about here. Really, really excited to get to do this with Bryce. It was super fun. And my guess is Bryce will be back next week because Adam just had a baby. So that's all we got, though. Until next time, we will talk soon. Bryce, tell the people where they can find your work. Tell the people what's going on.
Yep. Real quick, at Motor City Hoops on Twitter. If you happen to be a Pistons fan, the Pistons Pulse every Tuesday with Detroit Free Press beat writer Omari Sankofa II, my guy, the best. And then Draft Digest. I write 2 articles a week over NBA draft stuff if you want to check those out. Sam, I have a blast. We just talked basketball for 3 hours. My wife is going to glare at me and hate me. I'm going to have to give her a lot of attention the next couple days, but she understands, and I had a blast.
It was super fun. This has been the Game 3 podcast. Please remember, rate, review, subscribe. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go subscribe to everything around that is associated with the show. I have a thing on the NBL Blitz coming on The Athletic. A lot of what we talked about with some more detail, to be honest, and some tape over at The Athletic. So go read that. But until next time, we will talk soon. Bye.